Every time I submit a pitch deck, it feels like all I have to do is get somebody to say yes enough to like get somewhere with the camera, hopefully with some other like cool people, maybe in a cool place, and like we'll just run around and make something. And like I just have to convince somebody to keep saying yes to being able to do that.
Drew B Darby.
I'm probably more obsessed with doing video and film than anything else. You kind of have to have that obsession at a certain point. Restless energy turned into starting to run. It scratched an itch that nothing else really had for me. I never shot sports or anything, had only just done like pure traditional documentary. I took the full-time job and I put myself on a 2-year clock. The question was posed to me of, you do the full-time job or you do the 2 films? And I was like, okay. I really believe in art and tactics. A lot of the shift of the past year has been from what do people want me to do to what do I want to do presented kind of like the puzzle pieces. Yeah, so if you wanted to storyboard it, it would be tough. It's a very engaged way to do filmmaking. There's still lessons to be learned and the stories to be told regardless. There are moments where things actually, whether they're completely falling apart or like we just go off track a little bit and we need to get back on track, like now. Those are the most interesting stories. Those are the most compelling stories. I work for clients, I work for brands. At the end of the day, I don't want to get invited to their holiday party. Like I want to make cool stuff with my friends. And that's what's important to me.
All right, Drew B Darby. Thank you for joining the podcast today. I'm so glad that we can make this work. We are sitting here in my makeshift podcast studio in my living room here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I know that we were talking about before recording that I moved here right when you moved to Austin. So we both grew up in the greater Philadelphia area, right? And then went to the same K through 12 school. You're a couple years older. I think you were graduating high school when I was entering high school. So, but I mean, just have very good memories of working on projects with you. And, we've continued that for basically a decade now. So, which is crazy to think about. But anyway, thanks so much for being here and looking forward to it.
Excited, Dylan. We share some initials, Drew Darby, Dylan Delaney. Mm-hmm. I was trying to think about the initial, like how we got introduced. I don't remember how I figured out that you were into video or how you figured that out that I was into it. But yeah, it's crazy that it has been a decade. Like my 10-year high school reunion has come and gone at this point, which is kind of wild. Because I also still get carded whenever I go places. I'm certainly not 21 anymore. But it's great to be here. Great to stay in Pennsylvania, back for the holidays, ready to dig in.
Awesome. Earliest memory I have is when I did musical theater. I think I was the lead role, Jack, in Jack and the Beanstalk. You were on tech crew. And I distinctly remember this. It was after one of the performances. You came down and like shook my hand and said, "Great job." And, I remember that. So for some reason. But that was before we even got connected over doing like video stuff. But I had always talked to people in the musical theater program because I think like I was one of the Von Trapp kids in The Sound of Music, which was the high school production, but they went to the middle school to cast the younger kids. And I would be talking to people who, were in your grade, and I would tell them what I was doing with like short films or planning stuff like that or YouTube. And they would say, "Have you talked to Drew Darby?" So I think I posted like a script on Instagram, and I think that's how we got connected. I'm trying to remember how it happened.
Yeah, it was somewhere around then. I mean, the musical theater program really was like, that was the place. I mean, we didn't go to a big school. Like I graduated with 85 kids in the class, but that seemed to be the place that like the creative types graduated or, tended towards. And yeah, whether it was they were more into music, but musical theater was the thing, or for me, it was like more into the technical side of things. I was also into doing a lot of writing at that stage. And so, yeah, that was a great place to meet people. I mean, there are friends who I worked with there who are like lifelong best friends. And that's so special. And Yeah, I don't remember what the exact thing was. It might have even been Facebook back then, to be honest. Like back when Facebook was cool. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I was on. I probably was on Facebook, but I think it had to be through Instagram. I think I probably like found you and followed you and like maybe sent you a message. I don't know. But regardless, we worked on several short films. I think the first one was mine. It was called Angels Among Us.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just a great experience because I think it was the first time where I actually had a cast and a crew. You know, I was 15. So, you know, I was just obsessed with Film Riot and, you know, Indie Mogul, just trying to think of back with like all these YouTube channels and watching behind the scenes of movies. I was just obsessed with that. And I wanted to have something that was like a collaboration with a group. And it was awesome because like I wrote and directed it and then you were the cinematographer. But what are your memories from that first short film that we did? Like first of all, what prompted you to want to help me out and produce it? And what do you remember, or like, what did you learn from working on it?
Yeah, that was at the time, I think that's what I thought filmmaking was that like it was you do a bunch of short films and eventually you end up in Hollywood. Like that was kind of my perception of the world at that point. And so, you know, there weren't too many people doing it who were my age and were around where we were. And so whether it was me and my small group of friends or you and your group of friends, which like, you know, the casts kind of bleed together at a certain point. But no, I mean, it was so much fun. Like even at that point, like I just had this love for being on set with a group of people working on the same thing. And everybody kind of gets the direction that we're going in. We all kind of have our different part. It all comes together in the end. And I think working with you was a fun change of pace for me because I was so used to, I was doing the same thing, writing and directing and like rallying everybody together to make short films that I wanted to make. And working with you, I got to play a little bit more of the role, which I still enjoy to this day, where it's like we show up and we work really hard on set. And then I get a little bit more enjoyment after the fact because somebody else has handled the editing and like putting it together. And then I just get to kind of watch it come together. And so at that point, it was like, oh, I get to focus a little bit more on an individual job or set of jobs on set versus being the director, cinematographer, writer, and kind of having mastery over everything. It's a lot more fun to even at that point, still is today, really focus, really specialize, and also just help somebody else, work with somebody else, get to know how their mind works, how they're processing things. And every time you work with somebody new, whether it's like the start of a long-term collaboration or it's just a one-off project, I always find that I learn something new about, oh, this is how this person sees things, or this is how this person sets up a scene. All of those little things play into kind of just continuing to develop and to grow.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And then after that short film, the roles were reversed and I helped with delivery, which was, you know, that was your vision. So it was cool to be a part of that and to be a helping hand to help bring your idea to life. And I thought that was so creative how you wanted it to be a one take film. And that was so many moving parts. And like, what do you remember from that?
Yeah, delivery was, I guess that was midway through my sophomore year of college, I want to say. And for some reason, I got stuck on the idea of making a one-shot short film. I think it was the beauty of, especially at that stage, like you're working within the constraints that you have. And so it's like, we have to find a location that we don't have to pay for. So we got Alex's house and we only have everybody's Christmas breaks and like traveling to see family overlap for only a certain amount of days. So if we could cram it into a day of rehearsals and a day of shooting and make the film, cool. And then what else can you make in one day? What's the coolest version of it was one shot. Or pseudo one shot, you know, I guess it was two shots stitched together, I think in the end. But yeah, that was far and away the most ambitious idea I think I had, which I think back about like orchestrating that and all the different moving parts and everything, and just how crazy it was that was the idea. And this was also like the gear that we had access to was better than nothing, but was not ideal at all for what we were doing.
My favorite part was when you passed the camera to me through the window. Like I was outside and then you ran out back. I gave the camera back to you, and when you're watching it, you would have no idea that the camera's being passed between two people. And, just having it go through the window and then back through the door. I mean, that's incredible. Like we were like so young and trying to, just the accessibility of being able to do that. Like it's easy to look back and say, oh, like our equipment wasn't that great, or our, we were trying to do too much with too little. But I think we can be a little too harsh on ourselves. Like I look back on that Angels Among Us short film, and, I don't want to be too critical of it, because I think I should give myself a lot of credit for just trying to do something like that and seeing a project from start to finish. Like it's not easy. So
for sure. And like, I look back at a lot of those films, and the number one thing I'm thankful for is that I had friends at the time who were like completely into these just wild ideas. And like, it's hard to write and direct and do all this stuff. And like, I don't think any of it was excellent, but like everyone just kind of banded together and were like, we're going to get this done. Yeah. And the second thing is too, like shooting them and finishing them and putting them out was just the start of that snowball of, at a certain point, there is no way around in this business. You have to have idea, make idea, complete it, tie a bow around it, and then keep moving on. If you just keep stacking up footage or projects or whatever, and you just don't finish them, which I got into later in college, like there's so much stuff that I shot that just we never finished. I mean, even with, I shot another whole short film with Micah that like we just never finished. And it's a bummer. But like you don't advance if you just shoot the thing and then you're just like, oh, I'm just going to poke holes in the production and not finish it. At a certain point, you have to at least try to make something, because then that's that practice in, okay, we didn't have the ideal situation, or we didn't have everything we needed. What can we do with it? How can we make it work? How does it still come together? Do you just have to go and rewrite? Do you have to go and reshoot? All of those little things that are great practice for, yeah, I mean, as well as I do, not every project you're handed has everything tied up in a bow and you just kind of drop the clips in order and it's like, great, okay, done. Like, no, there's problem solving, there's creative thinking. All of that has to be done. But yeah, that delivery one was also where I started to notice that you were doing more graphic and animation sort of stuff. I forget whether I was seeing stuff you were doing freelance or just on your own YouTube channel. And so you ended up throwing together for our behind the scenes this cool map of like Alex's house and where everybody's moving around, all that kind of stuff. And that was the start of you were like my go-to guy at that point, where I was like, oh, because I didn't love animating After Effects, any of that stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, so Dylan's getting good at this. Maybe I just bring him in when I have those projects that I need to do eventually that have little bits of animation stuff.
I totally forgot about that. I remember I did the behind the scenes, but the map and trying to, I did so many keyframes of where people were in the map of the house at what given moment. And wow. Okay.
And all the random behind the scenes angles, because we would just like throw a GoPro somewhere or just throw somebody's phone up or whatever.
Yeah. I remember there were so many challenges with like moving lights too, because pretty much every angle of the house was seen at one point. So, we would be in the basement and we would only need to light the basement for that shot. And then I would take the LED panel, follow you guys up, put it somewhere else for when it's shown next. That's probably one of the most complex productions you can do. Like really, as opposed to being able to like take your time and set up each shot, and you don't have to, like, that entire side of the room can have gear in it because it's not being seen. I mean, like, talk about like a learning experience just from like a cinematography perspective.
Oh yeah. It was a cool problem to solve. Like, you kind of not one person could do everything, so we all just had to figure it out. And like, I can recall all of my steps that I had to do on that day, but I also don't know, like, I couldn't recall all the things you were doing, but all the things that Trevor was doing, or all the things that, like, I mean, there were shots we were moving furniture out of the way as I was walking through the shot so that I didn't run into a couch, all these little things. Yeah, that was, I look back and that's probably, of the like short films I was doing high school and college, for sure the one I'm the most proud of, because I look back and it's like, against all odds, we got that done in a day. I mean, I remember it was like getting dark. Short days here in the Northeast in the winter, but we shot the final scene and it is like just the last bit of light that my poor T3i at like 800 ISO can handle.
And the opening shot was out of the back of a car. You were just sitting in the trunk of the car following the bike.
Not just any car, 2013 Honda CR-V, which I'm still driving to this day.
That's the car you pulled up in?
No, now my dear sweet mother has another Honda CR-V.
Oh, okay. Updated, right?
Updated. Dude, heated seats, game changer. I'm just going to say that. It's not a car podcast, but whew.
I know that car made an appearance in the Angel short film too, right?
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yep, it's been around.
Yeah, it's famous. And then in addition to that, we also did a couple of YouTube videos, like equipment reviews. I remember we did the T3i versus GH4 because, and I selfishly was like, okay, you're in this film program. You have access to some gear now. Like, let's get a hold of that and do some comparisons. Cause I was also down that YouTube rabbit hole of and it's crazy like how time has changed and I'm evolved and like my interests. I used to be so into the specs of different cameras and like, oh, what are the new features of this iPhone or this Mac OS? And I could really care less now. I mean, it's obviously like you want to have updated equipment and you want to like stay on top of trends because like the technology is moving so fast. But I think that was also beneficial to work on those YouTube videos too, because it's like a different form of, I don't want to say like storytelling, but it's presenting information. It's a different style of editing. And I remember like we compared two microphones, the Rode mics, and then we did the lens comparison, which was actually pretty successful. I think it got close to like 100,000 views. But then I was, let's talk about the whole concept, and you sort of alluded to it earlier, of getting over imperfection, like in your work. Like you just have to get it done and put it out there. Like I remember like I'll look back on these YouTube videos. I'm like, oh, I didn't like how I looked, or I didn't like how I was on camera, or just any reason like that, or just technically, I think that this could have been shot better with like the lighting or something. Like talk about why it's important to just, especially early on, you just have to do things and accumulate a portfolio, and like something is better than nothing because it builds momentum. And like, can you just talk about that? Like, is that something that you've struggled with, like just with getting over imperfection in your work?
Oh, for sure. And it's definitely different when you are on camera. Like I for sure feel like I am more judgmental. I mean, today, even just knowing I was going to be on camera today, I was like, oh man, I don't feel like I have the right pair of pants. There's just weird stuff you think about when you're used to like staring at images for so long. Well, but like,
don't worry, we won't show the wide shot.
We'll yeah, for sure. No. Only we'll just blur it out. Normally it'd be black pants, but today it's green. Yeah, it's different when you're on camera versus the work that you're producing. I got used to pretty early on the fact that I could make videos in obscurity a little bit and decide what my name went on. It was different because a lot of client work, a lot of corporate work. I mean, I was behind the scenes of cutting other YouTube channels, and, I was cutting stuff at my first internship, and this stuff doesn't have my name on it. Or like a lot of it never went public. Even the first job that I had right out of college, I was making 150 to 180 videos a year at that job. None of them have my name on it. And so there was that, not that that's an excuse to not do better, but that was really the thing of like, hey, I may not feel that this was the best reflection, or like nobody understands that the timeline was really cramped and that I had to get this done super, super fast. But it's also getting satisfaction out of the fact of, okay, maybe not everything was perfect, but what part of the process did we do well? Was it the fact that we had a really fast turnaround and we hit the deadline? Like, that's something that I can really be proud of. Or is it the fact that even though nobody will see it, was the process really organized? That's a huge win. Was it the fact that, like, okay, this video looks a little bit weird, it's not like amazing, but hey, we had a goal that we needed to reach for our donation, or like we had sales that we needed to hit on Black Friday and we hit the sales goal. Like, that's something that I can take satisfaction out of, even if it's not like every single thing is perfect.
Right.
And then sometimes there are those videos too where it's like, okay, well, it didn't do super well online, didn't get a ton of views. Maybe it's not like commercially successful, but I also just love it because it does look, or it feels a certain way, or it, even if it just hits the few people that I really care about their feedback. Cause like, you know, if you get 1 million views, cool. Does all that people's feedback matter? No. Like, but if it's somebody whose opinion that I respect and care about, they reach out and they say, I liked it.
Right.
It's like, or they call out a certain aspect. It's like, okay, that I think it's more about reframing. Like, do you have to, you know, celebrate every single piece of the process as like, this is the best thing ever for a video to be successful? And I don't think that's how it has to be. Mm-hmm. Of course, the dream is that the project goes end to end and is like amazing all the way through, and the client is stoked and you're getting paid well and you're excited and it looks great on your website and it gets a ton of views. But that's like lightning in a bottle. That's really hard to get if you are, you know, working, especially in an industry where we have to make a lot of videos to make a living. Yeah. We're not making one feature film in 3 years to make a living.
Right.
Yeah. So no, but definitely there are videos that the group at the time was called For the Shot Films, you know, in high school, college. Mm-hmm. There are videos that aren't public there anymore. And, you know, the other thing that I'm sensitive to is that, like, for me, maybe I'm at a stage where I'm comfortable. But for other people who are in the videos, maybe they're just like, hey, this wasn't a great reflection of me. And I'm like, dude, that's very fair.
You've had people say that? Or
No. But like people who have gone on to continue in the industry, that kind of thing. And I'm like, okay. Or maybe we just like take searchable names out of the credits or whatever. All these little things where it's like, okay, you do have to evaluate. There are things on my YouTube channel that aren't public anymore because I'm not going to leave my reel up from 2018.
Right.
And it's not because I still watch those videos and I'm like nostalgic for a different time when I was like finding my style and all that kind of stuff. But the work also just doesn't necessarily reflect where I'm at now and what I'm trying to do now.
So I think the takeaway is just because a video might not be live or public on the internet right now doesn't mean that it didn't serve a purpose. Like everything that you do is, it's like a cumulative way of building up your skill set and like refining your craft. And like, you know, it's very liberating, I guess you could say, or I don't know what the right word is, to view things that way, because then you kind of reduce the judgment that you have on yourself and you say, okay, like this, all of that is a contribution to what I'm able to bring to the table right now. Like I had a pretty cool like moment of realization. This was, I think, earlier this year. I did, you know, I don't do as much production anymore, but I did like a standard corporate video back in April for this school. Like they have a week where they have all of these activities. It's like a science, technology, like engineering week, arts, or however you want to say it, math. It's like this acronym. And like I went there and, you know, I did multi-camera interviews. I did like nice slow motion B-roll of everything. And I crafted the interviews into a nice story and like delivered the video, and the client loved it. And I watched that whole video through and I said, like, wow, that video almost basically turned out flawless. Just every aspect of like the technicalities of the focus, the audio, making sure the compositions are correct, the editing. And I saw it through, and you know, I just, because, you know, this is what we do at this point is we work with cameras and editing. I'm I can't remember the last time a day went by, a full 24 hours where I didn't have an editing timeline open. Like it's just, I eat, sleep, breathe editing, kind of like take it for granted. But I realized that like all of me getting to the point where pretty much everything went smoothly is because I've done hundreds, or you could say thousands of videos over the years. And it didn't happen overnight that I've achieved something like that. And I think if we're going to go into like revenue and rates, which I'd love to talk about, that is all built into a production rate. It's the years of experience where you're able to do something in a short amount of time and have it have the finished product to be what it is. It's not something that, you know, it's years of education that goes into something like that. So it's exactly like you were talking about. It's like every video has a purpose, even if it's not going to serve you on your website right now. It's all part of a journey, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everything adds up. And even like the stuff you don't do, this is one thing that I've had to think through as like, I start to talk to some people who like want to get into this place. Not that like I'm like done my career. Like I'm very much in a growth stage and a figuring it out stage still. But it's like even the stuff that is not editing and being on set and all that, all of the other things that you're doing can add up to what it is that you want to do. I mean, the 2 semesters of darkroom photography that I did in high school, I do not shoot film right now. I don't shoot film, but like that taught me a different way to evaluate exposure, evaluate an image, work in the darkroom, tools there that are named the same thing in Photoshop, like the dodge and burn tool. All of that kind of adds up and comes together. Starting out in photography, like that was the first thing I started doing when I got a digital camera, was like taking photos. And now here we are, I mean, 16, 17 years later. And this year I had 2 photo only jobs for like, I would say A-tier running brands. And like, I'm able to tap into some of that. Like I still know Lightroom. I still know all these things I learned. And for a few years, I wasn't using that muscle every single day, but all of that adds up. I mean, just, yeah, even doing musical theater comes back to having that, like, there are no do-overs mindset of everybody's live. Whether you're on stage, you're up in the tech booth, the whole audience can hear if you make a mistake. And so if a mistake does happen, how do you figure it out? How do you work around it? All of those little things add up over time. Even though, like, I spent so much time, I was even looking through some of them being back home, like notebooks that I had filled with writing. Like I was convinced I was going to like write scripts and do all of that. That kind of faded away, but now I still do a lot of writing. It's just more on the ad side, and being able to know my way around a page and the written word and conveying things a certain sort of way. And yeah, it all adds up over time. And even if in the moment it might not seem like you're on set and you're being a PA or you're behind the scenes photographer. Like one of my favorite jobs ever, on day 1 of a 4-day shoot, I was behind the scenes photographer, and then figured out, what do I need to do to excel in this role? And then the next day it was kind of like, hey, can you also help out with a little bit more?
Right.
And then all of those little things. I mean, there's such a difference. And this is one thing I don't want to make too many enemies on, but like I can tell the difference between somebody who has assisted and somebody who has not. Because people who have assisted, like I worked with this incredible DP whose name's Andrew Bradford. We worked on a film earlier this year, and he's like running around, and I mean, he is at the highest level, feature films, Super Bowl commercials, all that kind of stuff. And in this role, he was just another camera operator, but like he is picking up my lenses, moving my camera around for me. I'm like, you don't have to do that. And he's like, no, it's teamwork. And he gets it because he spent years assisting in the camera department.
Yeah. You understand what it's like to be like lower down the chain. So you're more empathetic to the people who are there when you've climbed the ladder a little bit.
Exactly. And you also understand, like, there's a mindset to assisting where it's not like I turn off my brain and like I'm not activated until somebody tells me to do something. It's like, no, like there are things to be doing, anticipating the needs of others, all of these little things that you can do to excel at that job. And that makes everyone else excel together. Yeah, but it's all of those little things. So that there's not a job that's around media. I mean, you could even say there's not even a job that's around marketing. and being kind of in the marketplace that doesn't apply to if you want to become full-time in video production. You can learn. I mean, my marketing classes in college, oh my gosh, those marketing, that wasn't wasted time for me to sit there at all. I use so much of that knowledge every single day.
All right. I mean, you could even say that what I did in musical theater helps me understand, how to coach people to appear or be more comfortable on camera just because I did some acting. Like it might not be a direct line that you can draw, but it's everything adds up in some way, and like it shapes who you are and the whole service that you can provide. I guess even if it's not like a direct correlation.
Yeah, and you've spent so much time behind the scenes of podcasts, watching people shoot in different setups and different places, and you probably notice how does a host behave that you like? How does a host behave that you're kind of like, I don't think I would do that? Or you see how a guest behaves or that kind of thing. So now when you're sitting down, you're running your own show, you've already kind of had a little bit of a master class in how do I do and observe. Like when I was spending so much time cutting corporate videos and stuff, I learned so much about how if I'm ever called on to be on camera, I know exactly what I need to do to deliver, turn it on, all that kind of stuff, because I've edited videos where the energy just went out and it's just like locked in eyes weird onto the camera. Or, I've had to coach up, hey, the camera's going to take out 50% of your energy. So you need to give me 150% when you deliver this. And all of that stuff I've gotten to learn behind the camera. And so I don't spend a lot of time on camera, but when it comes up, you're ready to go.
Absolutely. Let's briefly talk about education, because you studied film and media, correct?
That's correct.
William and Mary. So talk about like your time there, and because I think you and I both learned a lot from YouTube, and like we're talking about just being on sets and taking action, like doing your own projects or volunteering on sets, or all the different ways that you can learn. Can you just talk about, as I think even it's different now than it was in like 2015, like when we were doing stuff like that, in terms of just the industry, how you can market yourself with a personal brand. It obviously depends on what you want to do. Like if you want to work a corporate job, that's great. If you want to be a full-time freelancer, that's also a great path. But, I guess it requires a different mindset, a different approach to education. So like, what are your thoughts on your time doing a traditional college education, studying it, and also the different ways that you can educate yourself?
Yeah, I should have brought my diploma. Man, that would have been a great prop to show off. Here, I have my diploma, because it stays in my parents' house because I don't really, I don't need it in daily life. It definitely feels like it's different. So I graduated high school in 2014. So I was in college 2014 to 2018. I don't know how much of my experience necessarily applies to now, because even now things are different and things are changing. What I would say about education, one, I will preface, and I'm very happy to say this, is that like I was in a fortunate position thanks to my grandparents, who some of them were the first in their families to go to college. My parents, who really believed that was important, that I was able to go to college without taking on debt. Huge difference in the equation.
Oh, yeah.
If you are taking on debt, I think you would have to be a lot more picky about whether it's going to set you up for success afterwards. For me, the college experience was great. I think I needed a few extra years of development. I think I went through a theory-heavy film program, and that is different from a very hands-on practical film program. So a lot of my technical knowledge was still relying on me to, I worked at the on-campus media center. I took the couple of production classes, and I ended up being the teaching assistant for those later on. I worked internships at production companies in the summer. Like that's where my hands-on knowledge was coming. The biggest thing that I walked away with was a minor in marketing. Those classes were invaluable to me in college. I also walked away with connections, which was really great. But yeah, I mean, I was working 2 to 3 jobs at a time too. While I was at college, I was not just like clocking in for 18 credit hours and partying. Like I was working on campus. I was freelancing, and like learning the whole freelance world as well. I mean, starting out with, I was looking through, it's another thing I found myself looking through, just old quotes of like, could I scrap together and get $400 for this video? Like
Right.
those kind of things in college, and borrowing gear. I mean, that was another big thing, is having access to iMac Pros and studios and cinema cameras, like learning the C100 in college, all that kind of stuff was, I don't know if there's no way I could have afforded that on my own at 18,
Right.
like stitching that together. But yeah, it was coupled with, taking that base of like, here's that educational base, but also, going out and cold emailing, 55 production companies in the Philadelphia area after my sophomore year of college, and getting about 4 responses, and then getting down to the one that we were able to say yes. It was like, cool, real hands-on on-set production. Going back and working with them for a second summer. Starting to freelance, and like just saying yes to productions that were either coming into where I was going to college or when I was back home in the winter, making my own work. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that college is at all the fast track to like success, because I also know friends who were going through the same program. They dropped out and they figured it out on their own. I also know friends who went through and finished, and they are not working in the industry anymore. Like, it just, for whatever reason, they either fell out of love with it or it didn't work, which is fine. I'm probably more obsessed with doing video and film than anything else. You kind of have to have that obsession at a certain point. But yeah, I would say the climate is very different now. The free education was there for sure at the time when I was going through college. But the access to gear was different. The access to the production level that was expected of paid work was different. Now there's the expectation of quality has dropped to a point where it's like, it's easier. Anyway, that's a whole rabbit hole to go down equipment wise, but
I guess it's more like results based as opposed to like pristine top tier quality. Like if you do stuff on a phone that performs, that's all people care about. Right.
Yep. Yeah. And you can figure a lot of that out on your own, just like tinkering and seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. I will say I have noticed a big difference though, working with people in a team scenario, whether they went through a formal educational path or whether they spent like a long time at a production company versus somebody who is just like, skipped college or dropped out and like just kind of went out on their own. There is always a little bit of a barrier to really integrating with the team, especially from a communication and logistics standpoint. I think I learned that. I mean, just doing team projects in college and being very involved in student organizations where it's like we have to rally 150 people to put on an event, all these kind of things that like I learned in college. That again, I mean, I'm not organizing events anymore, but I learned a whole bunch of that stuff that applies to, I need to get people together for a shoot. Okay, right. I know how to communicate this, be clear, go above and beyond, all those little things. But yeah, it's just different because the cost has not gone down. The cost has gone up for college. The free resources are more available. The quality equipment is cheaper. The need for video has gone up. Yeah, so I don't know if the equation is still the same. Like, I don't know if I was going to go to college in 2024 and not 2014. Whether the equation would be the same. Yeah.
And I think success is so multifaceted. It's not just learning how to use cameras and shoot good video. It's I guess you could say, like you said that your minor in marketing was really valuable to you. Maybe in some ways more valuable than, if you already knew the basics of ISO, aperture, shutter speed, how to implement that in a marketing strategy might be something that's more like worthwhile. And just like you said, the communication, the people skills, like that stuff is, which I think if you're put in a college setting where you're surrounded by like-minded people, it can help you like exercise that muscle of being on set and collaborating, or there's just the whole element of like articulating your services or being on calls and knowing what pain points to hit and what emotions to cater to. Like all of that stuff. We were saying that the information is out there. A lot of it's free and accessible, but it's knowing what information to seek out and how to implement it. Like that's a huge part of it. And I see a future where a lot of this like mentorship and coaching can play a big role in this in terms of if you want to, get a head start with your career. And I think, I don't know, like online coaches might not have like the best reputation. There's just so many of them out there. How many of them are scammers? But I think like genuine mentorships, could be a thing on the rise. Like I recorded a podcast with this guy Pete a couple months ago here. He's like he has a brand design agency, and I was asking him about education, and you have to take it with a grain of salt because he sells coaching, so it's like the usual selling points of that. But he said, if my son who's 3 grows up and he comes to me and he goes, Dad, like I want to be a designer, like what should I do? He's like, at that point, it would probably be more effective to pay someone who is where he wants to be to mentor or coach him for 6 months. And that's probably going to be more effective and a heck of a lot cheaper than like a 4-year degree. I'm not saying that's the perfect solution, but we're just thinking about the industry, where it's heading, how to educate yourself. If it's a matter of what information do you need, how do you implement it, versus because the accessibility is like, that's all been out there for a long time. Like, so I think that's, there's certainly upsides, and, like, my story in terms of like, I did 2 years of college, the pandemic, probably if that didn't happen, I probably would have finished, but that was the push I needed I was at a fork in the road. I'm like, I'm 2 years in. If I'm going to finish, then if I do one more year, then I'm going to be close enough where I might as well finish. If I'm going to drop out and just go for it, I need to do that right now. But there's also so many factors. Like I have supportive parents who supported what I want to do. Not everybody has that. And, with being able to like live at home during that time and like build up a savings and you mentioned this as a topic we could talk about, is like starting a business while not taking on a lot of debt. And it's great when you have the resources available, like your family is able to support you to get you off your feet, but it might be more difficult for other people to do that. So I don't think there's a one size fits all like solution to how to get into this space. That's, if I can translate that word salad into one thing, it's that. There's no one size fits all. Like it depends on the support that you have and what resources you seek out, and also like what you want to do, which if you're just going to be the general video guy versus if you're going to do like brand documentary endurance films or podcasts, or like what are you going to specialize in, that requires a different approach for each like niche within the industry. So it's like, I don't know. I just think that's the takeaway, is like, I'm sure that there are some foundational things that you should be like focused on, like the networking and just putting yourself in as many situations to learn as possible, like, and being proactive about that. And I think as long as you like do those main core things, the specifics will sort of like work themselves out if you have the right intentions.
Yeah, the number one thing I would say, regardless of circumstance, college, anything like that, you have to put yourself in a position where you can work with people who are further along and who are better than you in whether it's like the exact job, or even if it's just like they are in a role in the industry and they're at a higher level. That's always been for me the biggest area of growth, is like being able to work alongside or work under somebody, just observe them, their process. And that's like leaps and bounds. You keep getting better. And it's also a little less costly than you having to make every single mistake yourself and learn from it. Versus who can I assist? Who can I work with? If it's a mentorship, if it's an internship, even if it's like I'm getting paid $20 an hour to be a PA. Putting yourself in a position where you can watch people who are better than you, regardless of whether that's in a formal educational position or whether it's just out in the marketplace. That's been the biggest area of growth for me, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think like just to clarify something, like the being in a constant growth mindset is so important. It's like not being satisfied with, like, you know, you're always trying to improve and get better while simultaneously having the awareness to say, okay, I need to put this out there to build momentum, but it might not necessarily be my best work because I'm still working towards that. And I will probably never achieve total perfection. Like it's,
Yeah.
that's the dynamic of things that I'm like, it's the give and take and the ebbs and flows of that I'm constantly dealing with. It's like, when I said that example about, oh, like I did that video and it was basically flawless, it's like, yeah, there were still things wrong with it. But a lot of the silly mistakes that I would have made early on, like if the audio's peaking or it's out of focus or the interview questions didn't focus on what the video is supposed to be about and who's like it's speaking to the audience, like fundamental things like that were probably in place, but there's always things that can be improved. So
it's a fun stage when you're not fixing so much as you're improving.
Yes.
Like something isn't broken necessarily. Yes. You can always improve, but like nothing is like, oh, it's just broken. Like the mic was off.
Yes. Yes. All right. Let's move into the next step in your journey, which is when running was, which I'm sure that, you know, we're glossing over some things here, but talk about how the role that running has played in your life and your career, and just the, you know, how you discovered it. Cause I don't know, like if you were always into running or if like when that picked up and then what it led you to in terms of a career path, moving to Austin, because I just think that's a really cool, like inspirational story.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was not always into running, to answer that. I was a big, I did half a year of middle school track in 7th grade. That was my only like formal running experience. I did a lot of team sport, basketball, tennis, baseball, bowling. I was really good at bowling, ranked in the state. Fun fact, as a youth, didn't really play sports in college or anything. After college, like was kind of on that, like, just generally active. There were occasionally, I guess I would go for a run, but like that's like 20 minutes at a time. I was like, that's a lot of running. 20 minutes? Wow, pretty great. Or, you know, I moved to Delaware County and like go to Planet Fitness down there and it's like, okay, run a mile to warm up, run a mile to cool down. Like that was kind of part of it. And then I was working a job that was super travel heavy. That was kind of what I went into right after college. And we're traveling 2-3 times a month. You know, at the peak, I think I was doing 120,000 miles in the air, which all domestically is pretty crazy if you're a frequent flyer. It's a lot different if you're going internationally. And then we had this, you know, global shutdown, and my job shifted from travel all the time and staying active enough to stay generally. I wouldn't even consider that I was in shape at that point, but like, you're up and you're moving and you're on set and you're traveling and you're doing all this stuff. So like there's not a lot of days where it was like just sit at the desk. And then of course everything shuts down. We stop traveling completely. And then it becomes, we're just sitting, and my desk is in the basement of the house I was renting in Delaware County. And it was like, whoa, okay. And after about a month of that, I was like, well, that was a fun like rest period. What do we do now? Restless energy turned into starting to run. And that started with, again, 20 minutes at a time. And then one day I was like, you know, like let's go and try and do 3 miles. And like I did 3 miles in a row. And I remember stopping at the top of the hill at the end of the 3 miles. I was like, cool, good enough. We made it to that, walked it in. Like didn't run the next point too. Mm-hmm. Like just walked it in. And that was, like mid 2020. And the best way that I can put it with running is that as I started to continue and it became more part of my practice just daily, it scratched an itch that nothing else really had for me. Like going to the gym and lifting weights never really scratched an itch. Like cycling, biking, fun every once in a while, like never really scratched an itch for me. For me, it was running, and like it just became I don't want to say addicting because that puts it in a weird way. I don't know. Like, I don't really have an addictive personality per se, but it is, yeah, it just became this like fun. You could see progress. I knew I felt better. And it also was this cool thing that like I could take anywhere that I went. So when travel came back end of 2020 into 2021, I got to keep going around to a lot of these different cities and all these different places. And I was like, oh, cool. Like I can see, even if it was just 4 or 5 miles at a time, it's like I can see a lot of stuff and I can be on the ground. And there's a different feeling when you're on the ground in a city and you're covering ground by foot than it is like in a taxi or in a rental car or whatever.
Right.
And it was just a cool way to discover new places, see new things. I started like training a little bit more seriously and trying to see what I could do. But it was never really about like racing. I think a lot of people get into running and they're like, I'm going to start by running my first marathon. And like, that was not, I still have not run a road marathon competitively at this stage. Like I will someday. But for me, it's way more about where can I go? What can I do? The daily practice. It feels good. Now it's also blended into work. And so the way that kind of came about was, running was really changing my life at 2021, 2022. I mean, I was going through a process with my first job where we kind of been doing the same thing over and over again. And even just in my personal life, it was kind of just like, I don't know, wandering around a little meaninglessly. I'd moved back home and everything was fine. It's like, whatever, like I probably could still be at that same job, but it probably would still be the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I kind of hit this stage where I was like, I wonder if, because I was watching and there's cool running content out there. It's like, there's not a ton of it, but I'm seeing more of it being made. I was like, okay, I wonder, I do video too. Could I connect using cameras and running? And what could the overlap between that being? And that led me to apply to another full-time position. I had been like on and off, like cold DMing, cold emailing. None of it really worked because, up here in central Pennsylvania, not a lot of running industry was going on at the time. 2021, 2022, we have great runners, but that does not necessarily mean that there is like money, brands, pro athletes, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Even though we love Zach Miller, the pride of Millersville. I don't know if he claims Millersville, but we claim him. Yeah. So I knew that I would have to move eventually. And it was kind of down to this process of, I'm either going to take a full-time job and that's going to move me somewhere, or like I have to move and like start at ground zero in like a Boulder or a Flagstaff or something like that. And I was very ready to do that. I mean, I did a 3-month stint in Arizona, on a 2-week notice before. Like I have moved around. I've lived in Richmond and I've lived in Delaware County and Central Pennsylvania and all these places. I was ready to do that, but then cold email kind of led me to getting a job in sports at a performance nutrition company called Bear Performance Nutrition down in Austin, Texas. And so that was kind of this whole genre shift. A lot of things shifted at once. It's like different place, different job, and we talk about this, like this process of like, cool, this is the work that got you there, which was never shooting sports. Like I never shot sports or anything, had only just done like pure traditional documentary, B-roll and interview storytelling.
Right.
And then they took a chance on me. I took a chance on them. And I really at that point said, cool, old work, all in the trash. If this is the thing that I'm going to do, which is work in endurance sports, running, that kind of storytelling, we have to totally reinvent the portfolio. And so that's why I took the full-time job and I put myself on a 2-year clock. And I said, I love running. I love video. I want to make these things work. And I know that it's not going to forever be at one company. Because I'd learned that at my first company. I was like, okay, the job won't change. The company won't change with you. Right. You will change and then outgrow it eventually. So I put myself on a 2-year clock, moved to Austin. And that was kind of the start of a whole process of becoming a student again. Throwing out the portfolio I had built since leaving college. So, 4-ish years, and being like, all right, we're pretty much back at square one. And I have to meet a whole new group of people. None of my old contacts are really relevant. Wow. And then that's early 2022 in Austin. Starting to figure it out all over again.
Wow. There's so many parts of that just seem, uncomfortable. Just the one part about making the decision to throw away not throw it away, but not use it to market yourself anymore. It's like we were talking about before. You may seem like, oh, well, all that work was wasted, which, as we just talked about, is not. But did it seem like you had to, like, when did you realize, or what was that thought process like of having to reinvent yourself? Or when did you realize that having corporate videos on your website was not going to serve you anymore? And how long did it take you to rebuild a portfolio of work that was able to, I guess you put yourself on that 2-year clock, like was 2 years, I'm sure that was long enough to rebuild it, or just talk about that whole process of like having your portfolio serve you for the work that you want to do, because a lot of it might not be relevant. And you may think that just, oh, if I have a bunch of stuff here, it shows that I'm versatile and there's a good variety. And I think there's an upside to that at a certain point. But if you really want to go into a specific industry, into a certain type of content, it might be working against you to have irrelevant, like, corporate videos on your portfolio. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and again, yeah, it's not like I wasn't like, I hate all of my previous work, I don't want anything to do with it. It was more of, I know I need clarity that I am changing, and that, like, this is the thing. Because even if I can understand the complexity of, I mean, the fact that I got this full-time job without having shot sports was that, like, they saw that I was doing documentary storytelling, that I worked in sensitive situations, all these kind of things, and I could handle them and cut and edit. And somebody in the industry, you know, the hiring manager who was making films himself, understood that skills are transferable. But I knew that the type of clients I might end up going after, the type of brands, they're going to want to see something closer to what it is that they want to hire me to do. And so that was the process that I had to go through, is like, how do we start creating that work that will be the work that I want to do, that brands can envision? And how can I make that easiest? Is, it's not showing I can do a wedding, I can do a naval defense contractor video, which we worked on together. It's not, I can do nonprofit, I can do your party recap. And, hey, also, like, I really want to do this running thing, but, like, I only have one example of that. But, like, please trust me, like, hire me for that. It's like, no, you kind of have to show up and show that you're obsessed and do this. Also, you know, shooting endurance sports is a different, especially in the documentary space, it's a different skill set than most other genres I've found of video, just because of the conditions that you're working in, the athletes that you're working with, the things that you will have to do with the camera, hiking up mountains and covering a lot of ground and staying up for 24 hours or staying up for 48 hours. That's very different than, like, okay, you shot a corporate video about a medical device company. Can you come and shoot it about my semiconductor company? Like, probably, okay, we change the topic. We do a little bit more research. We figure it out. Great. So that was the nice thing, that I knew I had the luxury, and I'll call it a luxury, of I was in-house and they did not have me on a 2-year clock. I was just kind of hired to be there. And I was like, okay, so I don't need to be doing as much of the other stuff on the side, freelance wise, random other gigs. I'm going to be a little more particular with what I do on the side, making sure that it's all building towards this thing that I want to do, which is make it very clear that, like, I want to be in running. I want to be in running and endurance sports. I want to be making films here. And, you know, I kind of did chance into, in that first year, working on a film under the umbrella of the company, a branded documentary that kind of became that one piece, because this is the beauty of what I love about the running world, is that it's still pretty small. In the grand scheme of things, pretty small. Access is still pretty good. It is not a big four sport like NFL level, where it's like, okay, great. Do you work for NFL Films? Okay, then you're in the door. If you don't work for NFL Films, you are not, like, you're just not going to get the access.
Right.
Those kind of things. Like, running is very much a, you know, if you work direct to athlete, you can kind of just figure it out. And so I made one kind of premiere film that I put a lot of effort into. I kind of figured out that was a process of figuring out, okay, how do I want to start to shoot running? How do I want to be out there in the mountains and working and all that kind of things like this? That includes my first times going up to altitude and all these things, and working in bad weather, all these crazy circumstances. But that was a great first step. And then it was from there dialing it in of, okay, how do I talk about the work that I do there? that snowballed into more side work. And just like I had done at my last job, like kind of the side work eventually snowballs into this thing that you reach an inflection point where you're doing enough on the side. Or at this point, you know, I spent about 11 months at BPN working full time. And well, I won't say that I fully made the choice, because like I was kind of asked to, you know, pick eventually between full time or the part time. But I had 3 films potentially, 2 films lined up that year. I was going to take PTO and do them on the side, figure it out. And then it was kind of like, okay, the question was posed to me of at a certain point, and, you know, it's all love, and I understand how it is. You know, you do the full-time job or you do the 2 films. And I was like, okay, I mean, 2 films is enough for me to make a jump at that point into the unknown. At that point, I still didn't have the portfolio necessarily that I wanted. I had about 3 pieces that I was like really proud of, and a few photos that was like cool. And I had 1 or 2 people I'd met in the industry that it was like, okay, these people will either bring me work, or being around them will help me meet other people. And yeah, that was the start of launching off into full-time freelance, which is something that I felt I'd been preparing for my whole life, really, with doing work on the side and all these little things, and, you know, living at home during the pandemic and saving money, which, yeah, you're familiar with as well. It's like, okay, saving up to be ready to make the jump. So then I was able to really actionably decide and be like, okay, time to go freelance.
Yeah. I think that's a good formula for getting into freelancing full time. Is you can be working a full-time job, or even if you're freelancing and you want to work on something specific, but you don't have enough portfolio yet, to just have in the back of your mind, okay, I need to be more intentional about what projects I'm taking on. Like, is it going to serve what I eventually want to be doing? And you don't, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a light switch in the sense where you're like, okay, I'm just going to freelance. Like, you can build up momentum and have at least a partial portfolio in place and have some gigs lined up before you like take that leap. And it's something that you can be putting effort into on the side, which, you know, it may seem like daunting to just all of a sudden become a full-time freelancer, but I think you can be preparing for it over multiple years, which is what it sounded like you were doing while you were working at BPN, because it was a good experience for you, but also like it was, you were building up to it. And yeah, I love that. In preparation for this, I checked out your website, and I just love how simple it is.
Did you check it out after I fixed all the links? Because I did discover that about a week ago that I just did a redesign and broke some links.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, but I just love the messaging of like, I'm Drew. I capture like the most, important endurance events. You know, obviously I don't remember verbatim, but like, it's just, this is what I do. This is the best way to contact me. And here's my featured work. Like, it's just so simple. And I think that is something that, you know, if you want to do your own thing in freelancing, it's a great strategy or something to take notice about. Is like, are you speaking to someone specific? Because it's so, I mean, like, the video space as a whole is so oversaturated. There's so many people with cameras who'll shoot a video for you. It's like, you have to find a way to be memorable. Like, even if you're at a networking event or you're on set and people ask you what you do, to know to say something that is going to stick with people, that is clear and has like it serves not only an industry, but a type of person within an industry. Like, you could say, oh, I serve runners. It's like, no, I serve endurance athletes. And not only do I serve them, but I make this specific thing for them that gets them this result. And putting together a mission statement like that. So that sort of goes into my next question, which is, can you talk about, and I know this is going to sound like a super basic question to you because you're in it, but for those who don't know or might not be familiar, like, what is the selling point for these athletes that you work with? Like, why would an athlete want to have a long form documentary film made of their race? Because I'd imagine that the brand that they're sponsored by, they're obviously involved. It makes them look better if their athlete is, presented in a professional manner like that. For the athlete, it could help them like market themselves to get other sponsorships. Like, those are just the assumptions that I would make. But can you talk about like what is in it for the athletes and why is it important, like for the films that you're making? Why is it important for them to be made?
Why is it important? Why do I do what I do? So where I'll start there is that there are a few different ways to break out, and I don't want to be too inside baseball, but like a few different ways to break it out, where you have traditional professional athletes who I've worked with, who their contracts are generally based on racing and performance. So are you actively competing, and how are you doing at those races? There are also people who are on more of an influencer and ambassador style contract, where there may be incentives to be at races and perform, but it's more about showing up in the community, telling your story, creating content. And then there are some people who I work with who they are just running enthusiasts. They work other jobs. Like I shot a race for another Drew this year, who he's an EMT. That is his like full-time thing that occupies a ton of his time. He also loves just being out in the mountains, an endurance athlete, but he's not sponsored or anything like that. That's the simplest one. Why is that important for that athlete? It's kind of like a memory box. It's almost like you're investing in a wedding video at a certain point.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, which for a lot of people, like, I mean, if you think about it, especially the longer, the bigger that these races are, like you're investing certainly at the minimum months and months of time to train and prepare. You are spending probably a good amount of money, race fees, travel, bringing people out, bringing your pacers out, your crew, your family, whoever. Like, you are investing in this day, and nothing is for granted. Like, this 100-mile, 200-mile race, this may be your shot, and you want to capture this story. You may never get a chance to do this again. And this is just the moment in time you want to capture. So that's the easiest to say, okay, we're capturing a moment in time. We're kind of creating this memory box. And that's really fun for me because it's like, okay, I can kind of understand where that direction is going, fits in a box nicely. For somebody who is on a traditional professional athlete contract, what does that look like? Well, those are starting, the lines between athlete and influencer, athlete and content creator are starting to be blurred. A lot of companies want a little bit more bang for their buck. There are, especially, and I'm speaking to endurance sports. I'm not speaking to your big four, your MLB, MLS, like NFL, all those kind of sports. I'm not speaking to, that's a different economy than individual performance in endurance sports. Like, companies are looking for more bang for their buck. And what does that look like? Okay, so what are you bringing to the table other than your performance? There are people who can get away with performance alone. If I were to relate it to ultra running, I would say your Courtney Dauwalters, your Jim Walmsleys, like, these are the people who are winning at the highest level, setting world records, course records, and that enough is that makes them marketable, and they are doing marketing for you by wearing your gear on the podium. Like, that's great, and people will look at that. There's this kind of mid-tier where it's like, we're performing pretty well. We may not be a guaranteed lock on the world stage. So what else do you bring to the table in a contract? And that is going to be social media. That is going to be maybe your ability to storytell, your ability to get people to show up to a community event, your ability to, when you are on a podcast, people are going to tune in. Are you tapped into an audience? Are you connecting with people outside of they just want to watch you race? And that deeper connection, not to make it sound manipulative that like you would share your story just to sell a pair of shoes, but if you are able to forge a deep connection with people who feel that they can relate to you or that they can trust you, that makes them more likely to also trust the partners or the brands that you work with. And the way that a long form film does that I feel doesn't necessarily come across on Instagram is that somebody who spends 30 minutes with an athlete, hearing their story, digging into the reality of their race experience, digging into maybe you see the community that's around them, their friends, all that kind of stuff. If you spend 30 concentrated minutes with that person, you're starting to, even though parasocial relationships over social media are not real relationships, like you cannot know somebody just by watching their content,
right?
Whether it's long or short form, you're starting to understand more about that person through long form. So for an athlete who is looking at the professional side of sports, like they want to be the professional athlete, like being a part of a film, helping to commission a film, maybe you pay for some of it yourself, that is building it's building your brand, it is building your audience, and it's a way that you can both help yourself as well as help the brands that are partnering with you, sponsoring you, whether it's on the contract you're currently in, or if you're looking ahead to, okay, I'm in a contract year in 2 years, cool, I want to have that one piece of content that I can point to and be like, hey, this is the kind of thing, like I've been through the process of making a film before, we can do it again. I know I can speak to it. I know how kind of that world works a little bit. If you're building your own YouTube channel on the side, being able to also, there's a certain point where you're bringing distribution in, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whatever platform. Once you grow it to a certain point, it's like, okay, I'm actually bringing distribution to the brand. Right. Okay, you guys are dropping a new shoe launch. Cool. It's one thing if I'm in the commercial that's on, if I'm in the Brooks commercial that Brooks is putting on billboards and all this kind of stuff, cool. But Brooks is paying for all that distribution. Okay, now when Brooks drops a new shoe and says, hey, athlete, can you post on your personal page with 100,000 followers? You're adding distribution to, like, you might be adding a more engaged audience or a bigger audience necessarily to these brands. Same with YouTube. Like, I have worked with athletes on branded films that like, the athlete channel is bigger than the branded channel. Right. So you are bringing extra value. And again, it's not just about like, you should only do these films if you want to make more money. Like, because nothing's guaranteed that like the film is going to be successful and that you are going to make more money, or like, I don't want it to make it seem manipulative. Like I have never gone into a film being like, cool, I can't wait to spend the next month of my life to sell more hydration packs.
Right.
But like when we made these, my good friend Tyler McCain and I made 3 films with Sally McRae in 2023 with our good friends at Camelback, and they were launching a new pack. She's wearing the pack throughout the film. And we ended up, we did around 2-3 million views on YouTube that first year. It was kind of a win-win for everybody around. Like the athlete, I was behind the scenes of growing that YouTube channel from pretty much 0 to 60,000 subscribers in a year. And that's now an asset that Sally's been able to take to other brands and show that like, okay, we can do this kind of thing. Right. And Camelback's able to look at it and be like, hey, if we invested less than what we probably would have invested in a commercial that would have lived on our YouTube channel and gotten 400 views. And we ended up with 3 million views on this pack being used in like actual real situations, real races, that kind of thing. That's the other thing is it's the greatest backdrop I feel to launch a product is like in actual use, not just like photo shoot styled. This really applies outside of endurance sport, I think, but like anything that's meant to be like really used and put to the test, just put it to the test.
It's not staged, so it's more authentic and more relatable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not every product perfectly fits into that. But yeah, like a hydration pack was a perfect example for whatever 600 some miles of racing that Sally put it through, and she wore it through the whole thing. Like that's a great example. Same with a shoe brand, like go and put it through to the test through a race.
Right.
Outerwear, all that kind of stuff. So that's the athlete who purely wants to compete on performance, but you can see it's bleeding a little bit into influencer. And then I have worked on like really like influencer or content creator projects where they are, and I don't mean to detract from my friends who are in that world because they are great athletes, like, but they could not compete on performance alone.
Right.
They are competing on how do I tell stories? How do I activate a community? What is the outreach that I have? And like long form really, again, deep in connection. Those people who spend 30 minutes with you whether it's 20, 30, 40 minutes, those are incredibly valuable people to have around. And two, investing in or pitching bigger projects like that live somewhere else. It's important to think about like, what platforms am I on and who am I dependent to? If you're only on Instagram, your Instagram account gets shut down. That's a big issue because you don't own the platform.
Right.
So are you building on YouTube too? Long form on YouTube, especially now, the game has changed a little bit in the past year. Like, it's not a slam dunk for ultra running documentaries anymore, but there is an audience that's there that's watching and they love the longer videos. Those generally can take off a little bit faster. So why would a content creator want to invest in something like that? It's building another platform. It's deepening a connection. It's also building on a platform where you can directly earn revenue from the content that you're posting. Like Instagram, yeah, I guess you get little content bonuses. Like, you got 1 million views, you get like $5. Like, I don't know if I would call that really revenue.
Yeah.
Like, I have made more on YouTube AdSense with 3,000 subscribers than many of my friends with 500, 600,000 followers on Instagram have made, like, directly from, I'm not talking about brand deals or anything like that. I'm just talking about like AdSense kind of revenue.
Right. Yeah, that's I think there's such an emphasis on short form content. And I mean, as myself, like I do so many podcasts, and that's like a huge component of promoting the long form. But it's like you were saying, with the long form, whether it's a podcast or a half an hour documentary, it's all the building trust element of it that you can't necessarily replicate from just watching a 30-second reel. I think that's so important. And I don't know if I'd call it a lost art, but I think, with people's short attention spans and just doom scrolling and having a bunch of reels, like to actually sit down and take the time to go through an experience of like watching the documentary, a product being used, it does seem like a very effective, strategy if you're an athlete, and like you were saying, you might not necessarily have the top accolades, but it's about how can you expand your reach. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure you put a lot of thought into like that. I don't know if you want to call it like a sales pitch, but I mean, you articulated that so clearly that like it's like, what do you bring to the table and how will that translate to tangible results for the athlete that you're working with? Like, what you just said is crystal clear. Anyone who's freelancing should be able to do that as well. And I think oftentimes it's if people like ask what you do, you might not be able to say it like that. So I think that's a good takeaway.
And it's what I'll also say is that it's the connection of, I really believe in art and tactics. Like, you have to have both. Like, I am not just sitting here, even though I feel like I'm probably most well known for longer form, more traditional documentary style projects, which I love doing. Like, I also build the short form release strategy for those projects to go on Instagram. I have cut the additional teasers for the brand Instagram that come from the same footage that is made up of the film, because it all works together.
Yeah,
like, you can't just be like, as much as I wish sometimes, it's like, just put the film on YouTube and do there. And like, oh, here's another thing. Oh, just put the best photo from there. It's like, no, sometimes you have to go a little like YouTube thumbnail. You kind of have to like smack people in the face a little bit. Like, even though I have beautiful shots of Jeremy Miller running along at some of his races, like, yeah, people just want to see his feet that are just like wrecked and destroyed at the end on the thumbnail to get them in the door to then go through the experience. And so, yeah, it is always going to be art and tactics together. The same with, I think you could relate that to being an athlete. Like, you have to have your art at a certain point, which is your performance. Like, your performance is in a way your art, but you have to have the tactics that go with it. It's not like, oh, well, if I just do well enough, the brands will recognize me. You're going to have to, at some point, probably do some outreach, do some networking, get in front of the right people, and like never in an inauthentic way. Like, I don't lie in thumbnails. Like, I don't make stuff up, you know.
But certain stuff is more compelling than others.
Certain stuff is more compelling than others. And at the end of the day, it's like, to me, it's like, if this is a strategy that gets you in the door to experience this film, that is worth it to me. Yeah, and you have to have the short form that goes with it. And it's also about figuring out too, what is the way that it works for the athlete's voice, the brand's voice, my voice, like how do all of those things work together, and you kind of like build the style from there. Or like is the short form totally something different, but it's all like leading back towards that hero film.
Mm-hmm. And talk about the production process of working with you. Like well, first of all, you could talk about qualifying, is this someone that I can serve or not? Because you may or may not, it may not be the best fit, but I'm assuming if your marketing is done correctly, then only the people reaching out to you, generally speaking, should be nearly there. So you can talk about like that part of the process is qualifying, like, can I serve this person well? And then once you like sign a contract with them, what does your pre-production process look like? Because I'm sure you're really digging into like what you want to accomplish with the film in terms of the messaging, the story, the why. And then, this is like a really big question, so you can take it wherever you want. And then like once you are actually like filming the race, I'm sure there's like a physical and mental toll that takes on you of actually like capturing the event. They're not guaranteed to finish the race necessarily. So like, how do you deal with that? And then there's the post-production. You could do a separate podcast on each part of that process. But can you just talk about like the whole process of working with you, like the process that you've put together in terms of like taking a film from start to finish? Like what are the important things that you think are unique to you, in the service that you've created, and like how the things that you're proud of in that sense?
Yeah, for sure. It's been an evolving process because, 2023, I went freelance and I made 3 films, and one of them went pretty viral. Again, the running space, you have to scale your expectations. If you work in traditional YouTube, like getting 1 million views is something that some people do daily, right? Getting 1 million views or 2 million views in the running world is like, oh, okay, like you're already like pretty clear above. There are only so many that have made it above like the 4 or 5 million mark ever. So like kind of went a little viral that first year, and that resulted in a lot of outreach, which was amazing. Like I'm always grateful for outreach. And I was answering a lot of those calls with like, okay, this is what people want me to do. This is what I will do. And a lot of that was, hey, we saw the viral film, remake that for us. What I realized very quickly is that, especially to make the films that I love to make, figuring out the right storytellers for those is really, really important. Because there's some people who can really, there are people who think a certain way, or their thoughts come together a certain sort of way that are very interesting to listen to for up to 30 minutes, like almost in a narration sort of sense. There are other people who that's a little bit of a harder process, and so maybe it's only a shorter amount of time, or more voices need to be introduced into the film. And so that's probably my first step in the process now, is like figuring out, okay, and whether ideally it's somebody who at least I can go like watch or listen to something else that they've been on. And it's like figuring out who's going to be the storyteller. How does this storyteller work? And then like, what is the style of storytelling that fits this? Also, like depending on what it is that you want to do, I've gotten better about, again, a lot of the shift of the past year has been from what do people want me to do to what do I want to do presented kind of like the puzzle pieces. It's almost like assembling a freeform puzzle that you can build into multiple different things, because it's like, okay, you are doing a race and I am only going to have we only have budget and access for one day. Yeah, that's probably like 7 to 10 minutes. That's not necessarily 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Working within the constraints. Or if it's like, when certain brands get involved and they're like, oh, well, we want it on this channel, or we want it this certain way, that kind of thing. Okay, well, they want me to make the one piece, but what if what they really need is they need 2 minutes that is like product specific, and that is a separate cut. And then we have 20 minutes of like storytelling, traditional documentary. And then you can have somebody wins one way, somebody wins another way. Starting to evaluate that earlier and earlier in the process has been a big evaluation for me. Not to say, here's the other thing too with the business. I don't know. It's weird to call yourself a business. I'm like, just a guy.
Yeah.
You reach out to management@drewbdarby.com and
you are a business. Yeah.
Yes, it's true. Legally, I am a business. But yeah, you reach out to management@drewbdarby.com and surprise, it's still me. There is no manager. I also do plug into somebody else's process too, as director of photography, as an additional camera operator, as a producer. Always very happy to do that. But yeah, when it comes to like more of my like flagship style of long form content, so big pre-production evolution has been, okay, do we need to reshape what somebody comes to me with their idea? Or I think some people just feel pressure to like, oh, well, when I get on that 30-minute call, like I need to tell them like everything that I want to do, and like it needs to like be already planned out. And it's like, no, like not necessarily. We can kind of talk about like what are some of the goals. One of my favorite is like, what are the outcomes that you want to get out of this? Don't tell me views, please. Don't tell me like, awards or money that you get out of it, but like, what are the outcomes? Like, is it, well, maybe it is money. Like I need to make a commercially successful film. I'm like, all right, well, that's kind of a roll of the dice. Is it, I want to generate more subscribers? Like, okay, we can think about what's going to do that. Is it one video? Maybe. Is it a series of videos? Maybe that's the way to approach it. Is it, I just need to hit, like, my sponsor has bought this certain amount of minutes of content and I need to hit a certain minute range, whatever that is. Okay, what are the outcomes that come out of this? That's a big part of the pre-production. Yeah, and then in the niche that I'm in, there are a lot of logistics that go into these shoots, and there's a lot of planning. And if we're going to be off the grid, how many days is it? Where is it? Like flying in, driving out, all these kind of things. Like, do we need bikes? Do we need multiple team members? How many team members do we need? Do we have drivers? All this kind of stuff. That can get a little overwhelming, but you chip away at it. You figure it out. And luckily now I have a few shortcuts. I've done it enough times that we're not starting from, I remember starting from like square one on this first couple of films and was like, whoa, like what are we even doing? How do you wrap your head around it? But yeah, and honestly, like that's probably, other than the actual shooting, love shooting, we'll always be most happy with a camera in hand, pressing record. But kind of strategizing how to cover a race too. Like, okay, we know we have two different crews. How can we get the most amount of coverage with people leapfrogging next place to next place, mapping out on, I spent a lot of time Google Maps on CalTopo, poring over GPX files. I look at historical splits for other people who have run this race and like, how long will it take to get from here to there, and driving and like, okay, I've been to the race before. I kind of know where you have to park, or like, now that I've gotten to know more people who are in the industry, who can I call and say, hey, you've shot this race before. Like, what are the things that I need to know?
I'm sure the timing is just so difficult to nail down.
Yeah. Some races make it easier than others with the ability to track a runner. If not, I've missed runners. I've totally missed somebody once in all the races. There've been a few times where there have been very close calls where you get out of the car and you see a headlamp and it's like, oh, all right, here we go. But that's just the nature. That's the nature of the game.
Right.
And it's just it's a very engaged way to do filmmaking. Like, it's not a lot of like, try to stay engaged through an interview where you're like, eyes are glazing over and it's been 2.5 hours and you're like, oh, got to stay engaged. No, this is like, we are moving. You're there everywhere all the time. But that's pre-production. And then again, like trying to maintain communication with the athlete, maintain communication with the brand throughout it. Yeah, sometimes you do have to set up fail safes for like, hey, if the athlete doesn't complete the race, like, what are we going to do? Is it a matter of we bank the footage and we go shoot something else to hopefully round out the story? Do we totally write it off? Do we, do I have to take a 50% haircut on it and we write it off? Or is it like we pivot and we go shoot something else? Is the athlete comfortable with just telling the story of not finishing? Are we under pressure where like that is the only option? And some people are more or less comfortable with that. I don't love those, but there's still lessons to be learned and the stories to be told regardless. Again, a lot of it comes back to the storyteller. Are they comfortable with it? Yeah. That's an important part of the pre-production. And then, yeah, we're going through the whole thing all in one go here. I don't want to like,
yeah, I know.
Don't have like an hour-long answer. I mean, the production is like what the production is. You run around, you shoot, you do crazy stuff. And it feels less crazy than it was for sure a couple of years ago, but it's also like there is, I have a lot of alarms go off at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning on race morning. And generally my first thought almost always is like, okay, we're going to do it one more time. Like I've done it before. I could do it again. I may not get to do this again. So like, we're just going to do it one more time. Nothing like I really have very much an awareness of like nothing is guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like the world could shut down again. Races could go away and like, I don't know, I go figure it out. I get a desk job, do something else. And so it's like, we go through it one more time and yeah.
You just have to anticipate that almost or expect it.
Yeah. Like,
because then it won't be as surprising. Whereas if you just think everything's secure and it's going to pan out exactly as you think. So
yeah, like I have I've come to grips with like having a little bit more of a manic personality, but like definitely the lows for me are pretty low. The highs are never that high, but I also feel like that has made me a better filmmaker in the documentary sense, in that like I never get like too hyped before a shoot on like what could happen. One of the important things, and this is hard, especially in documentary, because I care a lot about many of the athletes that I work with, and I care honestly more about them as a friend than as, a product like in my film pretty much. Right. So it's tough to like, watch them go through the lows and all that kind of stuff. And you want to like hope for them to have their dream scenario, but you also have to at the same time hold that like, okay, conflict and drama are what I need for the film.
That's a tough balance.
It's a really tough balance. Yeah. But I try not to spend way too much time dwelling on anticipation of like, this is going to be the best day ever, that kind of thing. Because then like, if that's my anticipation and then like, I'm feeling a little crushed when things start to go wrong, like, am I going to still be inspired to just keep pushing, keep shooting, no matter what happens? Like, we have to see this through. I'm going to be like, oh, it's already off track. What's the point? And I've definitely struggled with that on and off of like, you watch the work that somebody puts in, you watch them train, you talk to them about it, and they're feeling great and they are ready to go. And then something out of their control goes wrong and the day isn't going to be what it is. And like, yes, I have to deal with that after the fact. Like I shot 3 athletes in June, none of them finished the race. That was a rough month for me because like I care about all these people and I want them to be able to see it through, whether it's, on the podium or not. Like I want you to be able to see through this thing that you've been working towards for all these months. Like that's so many hours. I want you to be able to see it through. But yeah, like as a filmmaker, you kind of have to separate that. Like there is going to be that emotional boundary between like, I have to do the job. I have to keep shooting no matter what. We're going to figure it out. Like on the, again, art and tactics, like on the commerce side, like we're going to have to figure it out no matter what. You have to get it done. And then there is the emotional side of like, oh my gosh, like, I've had that like, oh great, I'm gonna have to make them cry in the post interview again because like everything fell apart. And I'm like, oh, do I really want to do that? No, I really wanted it to be the like celebratory post dinner, but that's not the reality. And you live in that, and that makes the finish lines that do happen, that go the way that everybody wants it to go, that makes those so much sweeter in the end when it is like, okay, we did have to go through some real challenges, real conflict, drama, and those are the best stories. Is that when there are moments where things actually are, whether they're completely falling apart or like we just go off track a little bit and we need to get back on track like now. Those are the most interesting stories. Those are the most compelling stories.
Right. So I thought going into, asking that question that there would be more of like a formula to follow, but it sounds like the predictable things there aren't as many predictable things as I thought, just because every race is different in terms of like where you have to stop. You have to like pace and time everything correctly. Everyone's reason for doing the film is going to be different. I was talking with my friend Andre on a previous episode who has like a wedding film business. And I was asking him like, so how much of a formula is there? Because I'm sure like wedding days are very predictable, but at the same time, based on what the couple wants, it's going to be different. Or you might have to film different things in a different way based on them, as individuals. I meant to frame that question to you about like the races in a similar way. Like how much of a formula is there to the films that you make versus like or do you often feel like you just have to throw any like narrative structure out the window and just sort of make it unique based on the athlete? Like, I know it's kind of like an abstract question, but like, how much of it is predictable in terms of like, you're like, okay, I'll follow this structure in editing, but we're just going to get as much as we can on the race day because it's so fast paced. Yes, we planned for it, but we just can't expect it to go perfectly as planned. So we're just trying to work with what we have here. So like, how much of it is predictable? And would you say that is it less predictable than like other genres of, I'm sure it is less predictable than the other video stuff that you've worked on, like historically speaking. So can you talk about that predictability or the formula that you do follow from like a narrative structure and how like malleable that is from project to project?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's both less predictable, but also, I don't know, running an outdoor sport, the stakes are generally a little lower. I mean, like I've been in the car and gotten the call of like, hey, the subject of your documentary actually just went back to prison. You can't film with her anymore. Like that was unpredictable and like kind of puts a damper on it. We don't have that in running per se. What I will say is that, yeah, if you wanted to storyboard the film, you'd probably have to make 5 or 6 because everything can change, or even just little stuff like, okay, somebody slows down. Now it's dark. So all the angles that you wanted to shoot that relied on being able to see anything are gone. But, and I don't really do this, but I've always said somebody could be the wedding filmmaker of the ultramarathon space, because like there's a way you can shoot these races and you can cover them and you can kind of just tell the same story with a slightly different set of characters. Bing, bang, boom, done. Get it out, 20 to 30 minutes. Just keep going. Look at the Leadville 100. I shot it again this year. I've shot it twice. If you watch Leadville 100 documentaries, and love and respect, there are a lot of people who work really hard on those. 90%, exact same thing. Exact same shots, exact same coverage. There's only so many ways you can shoot an aid station. There are only 3 aid stations. And the people who do that race generally pull from about 3 or 4 different themes. It kind of, so there is some formulaic stuff that you can do there. There is also, yeah, you're generally limited to a certain amount of coverage, certain amount of places you can go. And so while there is unpredictability in maybe what happens on the day, there are a lot of the same kind of circumstances that happen. And, you know, just depending on whether it's like, is this person going as fast as possible? Are they going medium fast? Or are they just trying to finish? Everybody kind of fits into a box. Now, I always do have my eyes on what is next. I actually spent a lot of time yesterday with my friend Pat, the legend, who is, done incredible things in trail running. He's going freelance next year. And we're talking about like what is next, because we have seen a lot of the same stuff being made. And so I think I'm working on developing some other ways to work at these races, tell stories around them, and kind of approach things in a new way. Yeah. So I would say that there is a formula to covering a race. Definitely. There are only a certain amount of angles that you can get. Definitely. Most of us work with about the same amount of resources. That is 1, maybe 2 people. If you have, there are the people, the brands who come in with a ton of money, and yeah, their stuff looks a little different, but it is all kind of the same. And yeah, there are only so many themes. You can keep tacking on, I did more races. I had these things in a row, and I did all this kind of random stuff. But it's like, at a certain point, the themes are everybody's why is going to be a little bit different. Why are they doing this? But, you know, there's not an infinite amount. And so there are a lot of similar themes. And I think it's both leaning into that as like cool, not everything. I mean, yeah, if you were approaching it from ground zero, you'd never even been to a race before, like an ultra marathon. Like, yeah, like that's kind of overwhelming, crazy. But, you know, having been there and done that and seen a little bit of how it plays out, it is a little comforting to like know that like, okay, there are going to be some similar things, even if we have to, there are going to be some unpredictable elements. Time of day. How's it going to go? How's somebody going to feel? And yeah, there is always that grand, like, I feel like the grand divergence of like finish, did not finish. And yeah, so if you wanted to storyboard it, it would be tough. unless you were storyboarding like 30 seconds of a commercial. But in 30 minutes, yeah, you'd have to make, I would say 5 or 6 storyboards.
I'm sure that has to be frustrating if you see, just knowing the reality of if someone watches like a Leadville 100 documentary, if another one comes out, like if you do a subsequent one, someone who watched a previous Leadville 100 documentary might not feel as inclined to watch another one. And I could be wrong, but even if it's a new athlete that they want to know about, they just might be like, oh, I've already seen a documentary about that race and they're all the same, so I don't need to watch that new one. That's got to be like frustrating because that's just the reality of it. And it's all about like, where would your mind go to try to take it in a different direction or make them fresh or like kind of take a different spin on it so that people can know that, okay, I'm going to get something else out of this that I haven't before. Like, where does your mind, is it to the way that you edit it, or is it how you go into it, like entirely in the pre-production, or what are the things that you've been brainstorming to try to like break beyond just the mold of just if people are expecting the same structure over and over again?
Yeah. And here's what I'll say with Leadville too, is that like that race, because of its accessibility and the way that you're able to get into a race that has, there's some story, some history, and whether it's real or not, some numbers around the finish rate that make it seem like this insane task. And I say this as somebody who's not run 100 miles. It's brought a lot of people into the sport, and that's kind of their gateway. And so there's always going to be that one thing where it's like, okay, maybe somebody who has seen 55 ultramarathon documentaries is not going to click on my video. Okay. But what if, there was a content creator couple, I think last year, who the guy went there and they made a film about it, and like it did 2 million views, and like they were like travel van life influencers, and he's out there running this. I'm like, cool, like more people are being introduced to this from a totally different audience, probably than like the core who, I'll say it's like, I wasn't really inclined to watch that because I'm like, I know what this is.
Right.
But that's just me. That's not somebody who is like, I have no idea that people even run past a marathon. How do they run 100 miles? Yeah, I think you can definitely do things visually. You can shoot it differently. You can edit it differently. I think one of the things that I'm becoming more interested in is like, what else can we look at other than the person who's running? Like, what is going on with the people around the race? What is going on in the build up to the race in that week? Like, kind of what is the like if you were to make a Vice guide to ultra running, where they kind of go off the beaten path and like, what do you stumble upon that it's like, okay, here's this race that's going on in this valley over here, but like, what are people doing in the town over there, or like in the valley over there? Like, what are the people doing in Leadville? Hey, somebody should make a Leadville film where they go talk to the locals who like hate the race series, because there are locals who just absolutely despise the race series. Mm-hmm. And like,
no one's ever talked about that.
Nobody's ever talked about that. And I'm not here to be like, to invalidate them at all. Like, there are probably valid reasons that they're like, I do not like that there are this many people descending on my town.
And another thing that came to mind is about the audience themselves. It's like, okay, is it people who are already familiar with ultra running? Maybe they're ultra runners themselves, but then there's the people who are maybe totally oblivious to this entire space. Like, wait, people run 100 miles? Like, are you crafting the message towards that audience or trying to appeal to them a little bit? Because that can open a lot of new doors and get like a fresh set of eyes on it. And the running, like as a sport, it's on the smaller side compared to like the big four or whatever. So it might fly under the radar for a lot of people. So like you could approach it from that standpoint. Like, just as an example, like I edit the Duffel Shuffle podcast with Adrian Ballinger, and there's this whole world of mountaineering and expeditions, and like I was totally unaware of all of this. And it seems like such an amazing or an intriguing thing to like have a podcast about. And they obviously have their own films that they work on of like their expeditions or different feats that people try to achieve in that area. So that kind of occurred to me in the sense of like, I don't know, and I've obviously learned a lot about it from editing it, but there are people who just their knowledge level of these sports and these endurance athletes, or just the sport in general, is little to none, or they might have a misconception about it. Like, oh, ultra running is just for crazy people, or like just, things like that, where you can make the film with those people in mind to try to get them to watch and introduce them to the sport. Because obviously, like, I'm sure the goal is to increase and to grow the sport as a whole. So I don't know, that's just something that came to mind. That might be a way to go about it too. Because if someone is like used to watching the race series, or like the same race over and over again, they're like, I've seen that once, I don't need to see any film like that again. That may be like only people that are in that space would be inclined to think that way. Whereas there may be a little bit more unlocked curiosity from people who don't know anything about it. So.
For sure. Yeah. And there's also, I mean, so much is, dominated by the American West and by, some very key races in Europe. There are a lot of East Coast races nobody's ever heard of. These incredible, I mean, again, chatting with Pat, who's done a lot of these like historic East Coast races that people just haven't documented because like they're harder to document. The trails are way tougher and all these things. It's like, okay, maybe that's the next step. Is it going to introduce people to more of these things that they've never heard of, so that it also appeals to both people who have never heard of running 100 miles and also people who like they've only kind of heard of Western States, Leadville, and like maybe, I don't know, Black Canyon or something. It's like, what are the other things that are out there, so you can kind of see a similar story, but like a totally new area, totally new landscape, new history of a race, and new competitors, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to still do in the space and a lot to still be uncovered. And I think it's like connecting also to where's the money being spent, right? Is that like, especially brands may care more about a certain race or a certain level of races just because they have name recognition. But it's like, okay, can we find ways to maybe go off the beaten path a little bit and still display a product, still display an athlete in a certain circumstance, but in a way that, yeah, you change just enough about what it is that it does feel fresh and new again, instead of I'm back at the same race for the fourth year in a row. We kind of have told every story possible, but like, here we are again.
Right. Yeah. I want to circle back to sort of a business question of like marketing yourself as a freelancer. So one observation that I've made, and I've been editing podcasts in this space, there's a lot of overlap between some overlap between like what we've been doing. And oftentimes if I'm editing a podcast with, an endurance athlete as a guest, which is pretty common considering a lot of the podcasts I edit are in that space. If I have to go to their Instagram or something and, for inspiration or getting content or learning more about them, I notice that you follow everybody. Like everybody in the space, whether it's like or it seems like in media, like every prominent runner. And I'm sure that that's on purpose. There's an intentionality around that. So I want to frame a question about lead generation for yourself. Like with all the platforms out there, where have a lot of your leads come from? Is building a following on Instagram or trying to, get awareness on that platform? Like, what has that done for you? Do you get people DMing, emailing, or like, what are the main sources of lead generation that have been successful for you since you've established yourself in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a love-hate relationship with social media, especially Instagram. Like, I know it can be a time suck and it can waste time. I also don't know. I go on and off with caring about it. And like, yeah, like I definitely follow a lot of people and it's also getting to the point where it's like, there's a lot of people who like I've worked with and that kind of thing, who I just want to keep up and see what's going on and all that kind of stuff. I also think about on a daily basis about like, I should just unfollow everybody so my feed's blank when I open the app. I can focus. Yeah, I mean, it's never been to me about like accumulating a following of a certain size. It's always been more about like, who am I connected with there? And then what doors might it open up that like there is some organic discovery and all that kind of stuff, or people can reshare a post or they can reach out to me there. Just being present and being active. It is a free platform that is being provided to me. And so like I might as well be there. And I see it as the space where, especially in running an endurance sport, the most is going on. That may not be the case for every different area. Like some, maybe they're still on Facebook, or some it may just be like you need to be in these Discords or these Slack channels or whatever it is, or some it's like really YouTube dominated maybe. But for me, yeah, a lot's going on Instagram. It's never been to me about building a following. I will say that there's like certainly a legitimacy between having like 5 followers and like 5,000 probably. Like you may just seem a little more. There's also that social proof, right? Of you're saying like I go to somebody's Instagram, like I know that there are people who like come over to my Instagram and they see who else follows me because Instagram's also followed by.
Yeah.
And like maybe you see a brand that you know that follows me or another athlete that you know. And there is that little bit of like handshake social proof kind of thing, similar to what like LinkedIn used to be. It was like, oh, are you a first, a second, or a third on LinkedIn? Yeah, I don't do a lot of traditional marketing though, I will say. Like I don't make ads about my business. You'll never see an Instagram ad with my face being like, do you want your ultra marathon filmed? I don't really do that because frankly, I'm saying no to more projects. Maybe not more than I say yes to, but I'm saying no to more. Like more work is coming in the door than I have the time to do. Wow. I'm trying to be better about proactive outreach. This is again in that stage of like shifting from this is what people want me to do to this is what I want to do. And so I'm trying to be a little bit more proactive. Like I had a great meeting at the running event. That's in November. That's kind of now led to pitch deck stage and sending emails back and forth. And that's like something that started initially on Instagram with like following people and then following back and it goes from there. But yeah, like I don't do any traditional marketing per se, and I don't do a ton of outreach. I just try to stay plugged in, try and keep the work posting relevant work relatively frequently. If that means once a month, cool. If that means twice a month, cool. Just kind of trying to stay a little bit top of mind. And also like if somebody, I know how things work. Like occasionally when somebody says, hey, can you recommend this person? Can you just send me their Instagram? I don't want it to be like last post was 4 years ago and there's like nothing there. It's like, okay, for some people, that's the easiest way. It's not the website portfolio, which I love my nice polished, tidy website. Some people just want to be able to go on Instagram and be like, cool, okay, give it a scroll. Do I like the kind of vibe? Great. I could be better about LinkedIn. Like my YouTube is mostly like content marketing, really. Like my YouTube is targeted. This is an interesting thing for film and video professionals. My YouTube is more like targeted towards other video professionals. I talk in the twice a year that I bother to upload. I talk about gear. I talk about techniques. I talk about inside baseball for people in the industry. Instagram, I want to be a place that people who are fans of running, athletes, brand managers, those people want to follow me. I don't care if you want to follow me because, you're not going to see camera reviews. You're not going to see me showing off lenses and that kind of stuff. That's just not, I don't want to get the message mixed up with people.
Right.
And I find it more effective for how I'm growing my business to reach the people who are either going to be in my films or they're commissioning my films versus reaching other filmmakers. Like, yes, like it would be cool to be getting deals to promote lenses and stuff like that. But I care more about like, okay, I'm going to promote the work that I'm doing in hopes of continuing to make more and better work.
Right. I think even if the athletes and brands stumbled upon your YouTube channel, it wouldn't necessarily hurt it. I mean, because they would say like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing because he's, talking about the equipment. It's obvious that it's not catered to those people. It's other filmmakers, but it still builds credibility in a way. But it's good to have that awareness that like, what is this who am I speaking to on this platform, as opposed to, and I'm sort of at like an interesting spot with that, like with my own like personal brand that I'm trying to like put together is, I'm doing podcast episodes, mostly talking with like full-time creative people, but I eventually would want to like branch beyond that and just talk to, it doesn't necessarily have to be like like creative entrepreneurs. It can be other people, but am I speaking to other freelancers about freelancing, or is it a good follow for anyone can get value out of this because it's just general inspiration and motivation, but that's hard to communicate. So I'm in a tough spot there where I have to probably pick a direction or, really like go in on like, who am I speaking to, and try to get a little bit more clarity around that, because it's just like you said, it's like who is the ideal person that would follow me, and how can I cater what I'm posting to those people? So,
and with how platforms are right now, like it's easier to be niche than it is to and grow in that niche. But like I also see, I don't know, I see this sentiment parroted by a lot of people on social media, like, oh, well, when I post my work, like it gets like 40 likes. And when I post like a camera review, like it gets 5,000. It's like, yeah, because we all were following you because you were talking about gear. And like the platform reacts to what people want to see. And so, yeah, it's easier to grow in being in a niche. You know, one thing I will say, and this is a blind spot of mine that I'm working on right now, is, and I was chatting with Billy Yang, the legendary ultra-running filmmaker, has made pretty much all of the most famous ultra-running films of the past decade. I was chatting with him and he was like, oh, well, are you going to do your own content? And I was like, Billy, like, I don't want to be, because I don't really care about being known or being on camera that much. Like, I don't want to be an influencer. I want to eventually, at the end of my career, disappear and no one's like recognizing me on the street. Like, I can go live my life, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But he was like, well, the brands, if people see your face more, the brands will know who you are. And then I had, at that same event, you know, industry networking conference, a number of conversations where like I would be brought in and like, you know, people would shake hands. We'd be talking back and forth. And then I would there was one where I got a DM after the fact where it's like, oh, I didn't realize like The Finisher, that film you worked on this year, is like my favorite ultra-running film of all time. It's like, yeah, it's me. Like, I'm not a big self-promo guy, or like they kind of like put it together and I'm like, oh, it's because no one really sees my face or really hears my voice. Like, that's kind of one of the reasons. I mean, I would have said yes to your podcast regardless, but like one of the reasons I was like, oh, like this is probably a good thing to do is I'm like, okay, maybe I do need to be just a little bit more recognizable.
Right. Or more like vocal.
Or just to like smooth over that process of like not just rely on the person who sees that film that I made to like go and Google my name and hopefully not end up on Drew Darby, the Texas representative, end up on Drew Darby, the filmmaker. So I'm doing a little bit of going through a little bit of a rebranding graphically with a friend who's doing some design for me. And then, just thinking about like, how can being recognizable potentially help me just accelerate past that like initial stage of, get me past like the cold pitch stage to like, oh yeah, we're kind of familiar roughly with who you are, that kind of thing. All right, let's talk on a deeper level.
Right. Yeah, I think social media is one of the worst things ever created, and at the same time, one of the best things ever created. I mean, that's really, I think, an accurate statement just from my own experience, because it can take away a lot of your time and be a distraction but also, you know, the access of being able to get in front of like people that you want to work with, they might just be like a DM away. And like, I mean, it doesn't hurt to try sometimes. But regardless of all of that, I think, you know, we don't get to decide the rules of the game. And so the rules are that you have to have a social media presence if you're going to have a service marketing yourself, or even just if you want to get hired at a company, like you have to, it's non-negotiable. You have to put an effort into that. And because you have to, you should be thoughtful about how you're doing it. And it's just, it's worth having conversations like this to know like what is working, what doesn't, and how can I speak better to the people that I want to serve? And it's like we were talking about before, it's probably not something that you're going to nail right away. And as time goes on, like you said, you're learning new things about how oh, maybe if I did, sort of put my face to my brand a little bit more, then it might unlock some more doors. But also if it's working for you right now, if you have like too many leads coming in, it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like you've got
Totally.
enough good qualified leads coming in. Do I need to keep doing that? Like I had a similar experience. This was like a year or two ago where like I got connected with, someone local who he does like, lead generation. And, I was like, what if I tried to do like a LinkedIn outreach strategy or something like that? But I already had enough like just organic inbound coming in without that. And I kind of realized like, you always want to like improve and make sure that you're like optimizing your social presence like that. But it doesn't, like it's amazing. Like there's a lot of intangible things of just, if you're building your network up, then the like pretty much most of, I think, yeah, all of the work that I've done, over the past 5 years of freelancing since I left college, almost 6 years now, it's been all word of mouth. And it's just like you keep planting seeds in multiple places, and eventually they will come back to, like people will remember you if you do your best work and you take pride in your work, and you're not just doing it, which it is a means to an end at the end of the day. But if you're doing it for more than that, like this is my calling, this is what I love to do, that's going to show through in your work, and people are going to remember that. I know it sounds like kind of, like cliche to say that, but you have to, but those are things that don't necessarily have like a metric that you can attach to it. Like if you're putting effort into building a network, and then like people are calling you up to do work for them, it's like, I've tried to like piece together like what has caused that, or what things have I been doing that have been like encouraging that. Because it sounds like, if you're not running ads, you don't have any plans to run ads. And I'm kind of the same way. And I was talking with, I've been recording a lot of podcasts with like local creative people, and all of their business has been word of mouth. It just seems like it's a common trend. So, which again, that people might, marketing managers or whoever might be like, so I'm like nails on a chalkboard right now saying that, because, well, if you want to scale, then you have to have a predictable lead strategy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if you're like a solopreneur or a freelancer and you're your own brand or your own business, like you can create a very sustainable, fruitful career and work with great people just by doing the things like we were talking about, like putting yourself in situations, being a good person to work with, and taking pride in your work. Like it's really simple at the end of the day. And like, yes, there are things that specific strategies you can do that will help in certain ways, depending on what you want to do. But I just think freelancing and making a good career out of this thing that we call like video production, it's pretty simple at the end of the day. But I don't know if you agree or.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And the big difference, I think, for both of us, at least at this stage, is like, we aren't trying to, like, yeah, if either of us was trying to scale to $1 million in revenue with 15 employees, yeah, you probably got to run ads at a certain point, because you're going to very quickly outgrow your network at a certain point. But yeah, like I enjoy working in teams and like bringing on other freelancers for sure. I also enjoy not being like, cool, I didn't post on Instagram this month. Like somebody's not going to go hungry because I wasn't able to pay their salary. Like when you're not like aggressively scaling. I just think that there's very little that can't be solved as a solo entrepreneur especially in video. I'm not going to talk about design or photo or anything. Some of those industries are a little trickier, but like, especially in video, by making better work, by conducting yourself in a very professional manner, communicating well. Like if you are making good work and you're communicating well, and like, I love that you use the word thoughtfully using social media. Like you're just thoughtfully putting your work out there. You're not just throwing it out there randomly. You're not like bleeding the feed and posting way too much. Like you're being thoughtful. Same with the outreach. Hey, clip this one. This is a good clip. Being thoughtful with your outreach. Because the DM button is there, outreach is so much less thoughtful. I get so many DMs, and like it's super grateful to be at the stage where people want to cold DM me and say, love your work, would love to work together. What does that do for me?
It's almost like a template, copy and paste.
Yeah, it's like copy and paste. Like, oh, so I need to click through onto your profile and see if the work matches or anything like that. Oh, I'll do whatever you want. I'm like, well, so most of my work, you don't even understand that. Like, most of my work is travel. So you want me to buy you a flight, make space in the rental car, extra space for you to stay, to do whatever you want. It's like there are a lot of steps that I have to go through to even get to that stage. So like it's being thoughtful, it's being targeted, it's demonstrating that like I actually do kind of understand who you are, why I'm reaching out. And I'm not saying that like I'm offended by any DMs or that I'm angered by anyone. Like, again, like super fortunate to be at the stage where like anyone would think that what I'm doing is like cool enough to want to like hop on board. Mm-hmm. But it is just this like, just because it's easier, same with posting content, just because posting content on the internet is easier than ever because, you know, however these platforms are, like, doesn't mean that you can stop being thoughtful and that like the lowest effort is going to matter. Like, just go through the process. If you cold DM somebody, where are you based? What kind of work is it that you do? And what jobs do you actually want to do that you think I need? Because if you just say, I will do anything, I'm like, okay, but what do you want to do? I am waiting for somebody to DM and be like, hey, I would love to exclusively edit the kind of films that you make. I live here. I have fast internet, and like I have 12 hours a month that I can dedicate to that. Gosh, if I got that DM, I would instantly schedule a call because I'd be like, all right, we need to talk about this because like there are action steps.
Yes.
Again, when the barrier is low and anyone can send that DM, like what's going to make it more easy to respond to is, yeah, like I had a guy who we were on a call this morning and like his original outreach was like, hey, I saw this thing that you did. I have kind of a similar project. I think I want somebody to do not everything that you do, but like I want to hire somebody to kind of just shoot. Like, can we get on a call to just talk about this project? We ended up doing very little talking about like what my role would be, more just like the project as a whole. Right. But like, because I could understand and wrap my head around, it wasn't just like, you know, hey, would love to work together. Like, I get those and I'm like, I appreciate it. Cool. Mm-hmm. But there's something tangible to do with it.
Yeah. Speaking of people DMing you, like, you know, you've been so generous over the years of like referring work to me. And, you know, I'm so thankful for that. Cause honestly, I mean, a lot of what I've built right now has stemmed from like your referrals, which, you know, I'll like never forget any of that. But do you feel that a sense of responsibility, like as you know, have become like a veteran presence, like in this industry of, you know, rewarding good, thoughtful outreach to you of like people trying to get their foot in the door. If people want to help out with a project because they're in the earlier stages of building their portfolio or trying to get into the business. Like, do you feel a sense of responsibility to sort of like help those people or like give opportunities to other people when you don't necessarily have the bandwidth or it might not be what you specialize in? Or do you get fulfillment out of that? Or like, do you see any newfound like purpose in that? Because I certainly have found that of, you know, I've been, you know, I'm not at the level that I, you know, the ceiling is very high for this, but, you know, I'm like doing my books and like I hired like $10,000 worth of contractors this past year. If it's like people helping out on set, people helping out with editing, yes, that could be a small amount. That's a small chunk of like the revenue. I guess if you like look at the big picture, I'm not like, I don't have anyone on staff like full time giving them a full salary, but I kind of look at that and I'm like, wow, like I contributed to multiple people in terms of like helping them build their careers if they might be struggling to get work or just waiting to hear back from proposals. And I have a lot of editing work, quite frankly, like sometimes more than I can handle to do myself. So I've sort of shifted from the selfish kind of mindset of I'm just going to like drive myself insane doing all this myself. Why can't I offload some of it, give someone else an opportunity? And we were talking about this before, like Jeremy's looking for an editor, wanted me to do it. And I'm kind of at the point where I was thinking, maybe even without me knowing the person that would end up getting that editing job, like me saying no to that opens up a new door for somebody else who might need it more than I could. So I don't know, I'm just kind of rambling, but like, do you see a purpose or a responsibility to help do that for other people that are thoughtful about the outreach and not just being like shallow, like, hey, let's work together? Like, do you want to reward stuff like that for other people?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. That's a really good question because I go back and forth on how I feel about referring a lot. Here's what I'll say is that there are some people that I feel very strongly about. I want to pass work. Like you are one of them. That's like, I want to pass work to you. And one of the big things with that is not that like I feel a responsibility to do it or that it's like I'm getting a certain amount back from you or anything like that. It's just that like, I know you're going to do a good job. And you're also like thinking things through that like, if it's not a good fit, you're going to be like, hey, sorry, not the right guy. Maybe we'll refer it on or maybe not. Like that to me is the worst experience is when I refer somebody and then they don't have a good experience. And that's happened to me a couple of times and like,
because it's a reflection on you.
Because it's a reflection on me. And even though I couldn't control it, like that's the worst. So like I've had to be a little more careful. Like I've fielded a few more of those texts this year where it's, hey, could you get me in here, refer me in here? And I've had to back off a little bit because it's like, I just don't know if you're going to provide, if there's going to be a good experience. Like if there are any question marks in my head, I'm more of like, hey, I can tell you a good idea of how to outreach, but I'm not going to make the introduction. And like, it's for protection of both people.
That's a good point.
Yeah. But like, yeah, like you're a great example. Like my buddy Logan, who is in Austin, is a great example of like people who I know are going to do a good job. They're going to provide a great experience for the person. And they're also able to like pretty accurately assess like, okay, if this isn't for me, I'm not going to get in way over my head and not deliver on it. Because I will say like, there's also the other side. The reality is that like, not that I ever give with expectation, but like, the people who like I've sent, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of work to in a year, and then you'd never really see anything back, or like you see another ask for like, can you send more work? That to me is always like a little, again, like I'm not saying like you have to be equal opportunity. And like, if I send you $30,000 worth of work, like you have to bring 30,000 back to me. Like, no, not at all. But it's like just the little stuff where it's like, yeah, I don't know. That's been an experience for me. And there's no harm in it. Like I didn't lose anything out. Like this is work that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, but I've had to reevaluate a little bit. And also when like you do that and then it comes back and the client comes back to you and you're chatting with them and they're like, yeah, like it's not really working out. Like I'm not happy with where the content's going. And you're like, oh man, like.
So it's a more nuanced decision.
It's a more nuanced decision. And the other one that I've basically cut off is like, I get a lot of cold outreach for like projects, especially like they want to film on their Ultra. And I say, hey, sorry, like booked basically a year in advance. Like, can you refer me to anybody else? And I've gotten to the point where that I'm like, if I don't know you, and so I'm like cold referring, I don't know, it's like basically 2 cold outreaches going at once. I'm like, I've just stopped getting into the middle of that where I say like, I would say like, hey, these people, maybe you should look at their work and like see somebody who might fit for what you do. But like, that's the most I'll kind of do at that point. Just because like, I never want it to reflect badly on me or for somebody to then get outreach from that person. And they're like, oh, Drew recommended me. I have to say yes, even though it's not the right fit. Like, no. Like I want everybody to get the right experience. I mean, look, like this is the other thing that I've said, and there are projects that I've either lost the pitch on or, you just end up not being involved after a certain point in the process. It's like, look, like I want the project to have the right fit. Right. The right person doing the right job, getting everybody what they need. And like, I know that's not me for everything. And if it's somebody else, it's somebody else. But I don't want to refer somebody into a situation where they then feel pressured to deliver, when like if it came in their door originally, they would have been like, yeah, no, I don't really do that.
Right. Yeah. I think the takeaway there is saying no to referring someone or taking on a project is not disrespectful if done in the right way. Like because it's respecting yourself and the work that you do, and you care about the outcome of the project. And if you can't necessarily contribute to that, then you shouldn't feel guilty about not being able to do that, or like less virtuous. You shouldn't feel that way. It's just might be the reality of what it is. And that's also, I mean, for me, like the people that I've given work has typically, it's all been under my eye. Like if like I'll have them on set and I'll be there, or like to supervise, or I'll be the middleman between them, their work, and the client. So I'm able to like do the quality control before it goes to the client. So I feel like that has allowed me to, be, and the people that I've hired as contractors, like being a contractor myself, like I know that it's a tough, it can be tough in terms of like, getting work, and I want to help out there. And I think that's a good way to do it, because like my reputation is not necessarily at stake, because I still have control over being able to fix things, or they're not necessarily client facing.
Yeah, I guess subcontracting too is a little different. Like I love bringing in other people. And one of the things that I love about bringing in other people is that like, I mean, just the way that I run my business, like I am never bringing somebody on to a project who I can't pay them. Like if we were to get out of our cars in the parking lot and be like, hey, welcome to set, like I can pay them right then. Yes. Because I know that's something that I love as a contractor myself, when like the person is either like right before or right after, it's kind of like payment's good to go. Yeah. And like, I love bringing people in and being able to just like provide them a job that like I can help them. It fits in a box. Like this is the scope, like this is what we're doing. So I try and offset some of the constant struggles we all feel interfacing with client or agency or whatever it is. And it's like, oh, payment or unclear scope, this kind of thing. Like I love bringing people in and being like, hey, I want to give you a good experience, because you doing this edit for me is like so incredible and saving my life. Like I had one of those last year with my buddy Logan, where like he came into a project that I could not have finished myself. I had too much going on. Yeah. He came in and did it. And like I ended up getting paid out for that probably 6.5 months later, like got paid out. But like I made sure that he was paid out when we said he was going to get paid out, because I was like, you're doing me a great, I mean, I don't want to call it a favor, because like it's work. Yes, it is transaction.
You want to make sure they know that they're appreciated
exactly
through the actions, not just your words.
Yep. I just believe in like, I want people to have a good experience and a solid experience. And like, if I'm not getting that with the client, like I'm doing the best that I can with my other contractors, whoever it is, to like, okay, I'm going to control what I can control. And like, even though, because these people also too understand that like issues with client aren't necessarily issues with the person.
Right.
So maybe I can bring you on to the next project and you're like, cool, even if it's another client who doesn't communicate well, Drew's going to do a good job in managing it. So I don't feel stressed and feel like, oh, I'm just getting rung around everywhere, like trying to chase the tail of the client. Yeah. Anyway,
I think a lot of that subcontractor experience that you desire to give is a result of you being a contractor yourself, because you know what it's like to get paid late, or to not have a clear scope of work, or everything's disorganized. And like an example of that is like there's this production company in Philly that I freelanced for a couple of years, and earlier this year I like haven't been as consistent with them anymore, but like I've occasionally jumped on because the guy that runs it I really respect, and has like been like really influential to me and given me a lot of like opportunities and stuff. So like sometimes like he's working with this group of editors and he wants me to like quality control it or just look through videos and stuff, and I have to be on like Slack with these other editors, and I've been the punching bag at the bottom of, there's the agency, the client, the marketing agency, the video production company, the project manager, and then me, the editor. Like I've been at the bottom. I've been like all these revisions just like over and over again, like I've been at the bottom, and I think, punching bag is the term that I use, because it's like you just get everything thrown at you, and with the expectation of just, do it right. You do all like the little mundane, tedious tasks, and everyone is just like overseeing it. I've been there. So I know that when I'm dealing with these editors, I am so gracious towards, like, if obviously if you make a mistake over and over again, it's like, okay, then you need to call that out. But if there's an honest mistake, just don't chew them out for it. It just, because I've been there. So it's like I think that's a big part of like being on a macro level, being an employee will make you a better employer. Mm-hmm. Like we're talking about, it's all cumulative, because like you've been in their shoes, and that will help you be a little bit more empathetic and just do things in a more organized way, and make sure that like their experience working with you, because all of that is a reflection on you. If you pay people on time, if you're organized, if you like set reasonable expectations, like these all might seem like small things, but I've thought a lot about that. If I give someone something to edit, I want to make sure that they feel like they're being compensated fairly. Even if, I know you want to talk about revenue mindset, but I've moved on from the point of, I used to split hairs over, oh, this project, if I'm making like $200 on this podcast episode, then I can't pay someone $175 to do it. I only make $25. My time to QC this and like upload it and send it to the client and do the emails, that's worth a lot more than $25. But I've looked at the whole thing of like, okay, I don't stop. I need to think macro level here. What does the year look like? What am I paying in contracting? Am I paying contractors a rate that is fair, that they feel is fair to them? Am I providing a clear messaging and a process that they can follow? Because it's not just the client experience that's important. It's also your team, and you need to be respected and things in that sense. I know we've gone off on this whole tangent here, but I think it's important from a collaboration perspective, like, because you're bound to work with a team at some point, whether you're, at the lower level of responsibility or you're leading it. And it's really important to just not brush that aside and be like, all right, the client experience is the only thing that matters here. The finished product it's all the little things, because if your contractors are happier, then they're going to do better work, and everything is going to go smoother in that sense. So I don't know if you have thoughts on that. If you've like worked on having hired people or worked on teams, like it's something that you should pay attention to. Right? Yeah,
for sure. And like, yeah, I think what you said there is that still having access to that employee mindset, like still being able to tap back into that, like wherever you were on the totem pole, like just makes it, not that everybody has it, not that people like haven't been employees, but like even our industry is pretty specialized, and like understanding how, the way that you talk to a client is going to be different than the way that you talk to an editor. Like the notes that you pass through to the editor, how to like edit them, tweak them, change it. Like, okay, this is probably what they actually really want.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of that comes down to communication. Yeah. And to me, it's like, yeah, I just want to provide everyone. I want to have a good experience. There are also, I'm well aware of like, there are projects you get onto. It's like, okay, the client is not going to come back to me for another thing. Like for one reason or another, like you kind of get a sense of like, probably won't have another thing, but dude, I want to hire this editor again. So like, let's make sure that the editor feels good, shake hands at the end. It's like, hey man, like would love to bring you on to something else, versus like beating them up to make sure that the client who isn't going to call you back because they're just going to go to the cheaper option next time. Like that's not it. I don't feel a need to preserve that relationship. But if I like working with an editor, another shooter, somebody like that, it's like, okay, I want to make sure that you are having, I've gone to the point of like, I have taken a cut off of my invoice and like given it to second shooters and stuff like that. Like just, I've told the producer, like, give them an extra cut, because I'm like, I really want to make sure that you are available for the next shoot, because that's worth it to me. Because then we get to make better work, and we get to make better work with the people that we want to work with. And that's at the end of the day, what I really care the most about. Like I'm not into, like I work for clients, I work for brands, all that kind of stuff. Like at the end of the day, I don't want to get invited to their holiday party. Like I want to make cool stuff with my friends.
Right.
And that's what's important to me.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too is just sustaining the client relationship if this is someone that you want to work with, like, and taking a cut of your payment and giving it to the people that like really helped make this possible to have a good finished product, and the client's happy and it can turn into like a consistent retainer for like the next year, and you enjoy working with this client and this is what you want to do. Like that's how I've started to see things. Like I used to like be so obsessed with like, oh, I'm not making, like, I'm just breaking even on this project. But it's like, if you have dozens and dozens and dozens of projects over the course of a year that add up, it's not, if you have one project where you're just getting it done on time and the client's happy, and this is a client that you want to work with into the foreseeable future, you just gave someone some business for themselves, and like you're moving things forward and you're thinking about it in the big picture. Like, that's what I've thought about. But, yeah, do you have any other thoughts on just like freelancing in general in terms of business tips and making it like a sustainable career? Because I think, I mean, a theme that I often touch on in these podcasts is like, there might be a stigma around it if like you talk to people and they're like, oh, you know, if they say, oh, I have my own video business, like I often get the impression, and this just might be my own imagination, but people thinking like, oh, he's unemployed, he's doing his own thing, trying to make ends meet. But I think like the two of us, we've built like incredible careers, like out of just, I mean, doing stuff that I consider to just be fun, honestly. And I know there's a lot of stress that comes. There are many nights where I'm pulling my hair out. There's too much to do. But at the end of the day, I love it because I'm building something for myself, or like I'm building a client list of people that I enjoy working with. They appreciate my work. I'm able to pay my bills and then some. I think a good way to frame this would be like, how do you define success like in your career? Revenue is important, obviously, because revenue and a sustainable career enables you to do different things. But also it's like, are you doing work that fulfills you? Are you working with great people, both your clients and the teams that are putting these things together? Are you able to do things on your own terms, like travel, not have to ask for permission from a boss for time off? Like that's one thing that I consider like a key pillar of my success, is being able to do things on your own terms. And I think freelancing, there's pros and cons. I think the pros heavily outweigh the cons. You know, the cons are like you're working all the time. There's no off switch, but you know, I wouldn't have it any other way for several reasons. So I guess like as you've been doing freelancing, like, and doing your own thing for a while now, like what are the things like when you, even right now, like you know, it's the year's wrapping up, you have some time to reflect. Like what are the things that you look at and say, wow, like I consider this a successful year because of X, Y, Z. What are those things that you attribute to success?
And this is a good question, because this is a question I ask a lot of athletes before races that I found interesting, is like, what does success mean? Because yeah, for some people it is literally like win or die. But for other people, it's like, okay, like success could mean a whole bunch of things on race day. Yeah, what does success look like? It's definitely changed. Success originally was like, okay, did I get enough stuff to make a new reel for next year? And like that was the early like, okay, every project I kind of want to get one more shot for the reel. And it's like, cool. And now it's like, yeah, what is a successful year? Definitely lifestyle plays into it, like getting to live the lifestyle that I prefer on a day-to-day basis. I mean, like the travel is hard, and like I prioritize my work over pretty much anything else. And like that's not the most sustainable long-term mindset. But success for me has definitely meant like, okay, when I am home in Austin, if I want to go, I feel great running at like 10 a.m. in the morning, like kind of middle of the day. And I feel so much better going for like waking up when I want to. If I want to start working at 7, I can start working at 7. If I just want to hang out, start working at 8, then I go for a run in the middle of the day, that kind of thing. If I want to work from a coffee shop, cool. If I want to work back in my home office, cool. It wasn't like
nothing like it.
I think about sitting in a little bullpen of 4 desks facing each way and the CEO coming into the office saying, "High vibes team," when there are investors coming in, not giving a shit about whether, sorry, I probably can't curse on there.
That's fine.
But yeah, just like coming into the office and be like, "High vibes team, like here's the investors coming in," and like I'm trying to cut a scene where like I'm trying to be emotionally invested in cutting this scene, and there's noise and all this stuff going around me, and like I have to be here 8:30 to 4:30, and there are no exceptions, even though like I don't really want to run at 6 a.m, and also it's the winter, so it's going to be dark by the time I get out of here. Having the choice in lifestyle, incredible. Like that means success. Like, yeah, I mean, as I reflect on this year, I wish that some projects had gone differently. I wish that I had, made some things a little bit different. Like I had a film do pretty well earlier this year. After that, it's kind of been a slump in terms of things that have gotten a lot of attention. But, we went from like July, August, where I was like, oh boy, revenue is going to be like way down from last year, to now it's about the same as last year here in the last month. It's like, cool. Like to me, that's a success. Cause also like, I'm not obsessed with getting rich. Like to me, ultimate success is going to be, hopefully one day it's just going to kind of be that if people want to find me and they want to work with something, like they'll come find me.
Yeah.
Like if I want to live somewhere where I'm not 15 minutes from an airport, so I can, and like, they have to get in a rental car and drive 2 hours and come see me on my cabin in the woods. Like that's my ultimate success dream, to be honest. But yeah, it's like, it's finding ways to grade it. And like, yeah, being able to make the time, to come back here for a couple of weeks, spend time with the family and see, nephews and see my aunt and see my mom, my dad, and check in with everybody. Like that's important. And, I was able to, after another work trip earlier this year, just stop by kind of on my way back across the country and see people. And yeah, that to me is success. And like, still, yeah, like I've never imagined having another job. Like, even though like, yeah, as a kid, you go through like whatever other phase, like pretty quickly I went to like, okay, camera equals job.
Yeah.
Did I really understand what it would mean? No, but it was like, okay, like I like playing with cameras. Like this would be a cool job. So, and it sounds so simple, and people like, I don't know, people think that I'm making a joke, but it's genuinely like, yeah, we got through another year. Like that's pretty rad. I get to keep doing the thing that I enjoy doing, the thing that like, I mean, other than like, I really could have been good at bowling, but like, other than that, like, this is the thing that I'm probably the best at. And so like, we get to do it for another year, get to do it with more friends. And like, I know it's not forever, but like for this season, I'm enjoying it a lot, and we're figuring out a way to make it sustainable. And I live a pretty simple life. I don't need a whole lot. Just, I get to go. And I will say, like, I have gotten a little jaded. Like, I've been traveling almost full time for work since 2018. And so like, I get a little jaded to the travel, but it is pretty cool that like, checking off new states and going places that, chatting with people who've lived a little bit more of like a traditional career kind of job, or like somebody who's like a long-term teacher. Like, I chatted with a teacher who was at, DC actually for a long time. I mean, probably like 40 years, a couple of days ago. And it's like, oh, like, have you been out to the Eastern Sierra in California, all these kind of places that I love to go? And it's like, no, like never really made it past, like maybe like Indiana or something like that. And I'm like, whoa, I can't take it for granted that I get to go cool places, cool people. And I guess like, and running kind of counts as my job. It's pretty rad.
Yeah. I like to think about it. Just take it 1 month at a time. 1 year at a time. I often have to pinch myself that I'm able to be paid to edit and produce videos and pay my bills doing it. Like, it's so simple. Like, and that's how I consider success, really, is just I've been all over the country, just, not for work things necessarily, a couple things, but like, like I'm a baseball fan. I've been to like 20 of the 30 stadiums, like, and literally just take my laptop, edit from a different city, a different state, see a new place. And and I might sound like a broken record on this podcast, but like it's such an exciting time to just, laptop, internet connection. That's all you need really to like educate yourself and create a career. And I mean, I know there's other things on top of that, like we've talked about. It's like, it's not easy necessarily, but the resources are there to do it.
Yep.
So I think it's, I often have to just see if it's, like, is this real? Like, am I able to do this for work? And like, I'm to do it, to be my own boss. Like it's so, I'm like genuinely thankful for it. And I try not to take it for granted. And I think that's one of the messages that I have with this podcast is like if you and I can do it, then like it's possible for other people who want to, do video full time, like for themselves, or, pursue something like that has passion and meaning to them. It's just all about finding the inspiration of other people that are doing it. So that's why I've been speaking with people like you. And I really appreciate all of your insights and stories today.
Dude, anytime. No, it's good. And yeah, I mean, it's cool too. This is a cool milestone sort of podcast. Cause like, yeah, I mean, I wonder who I could ask. I could ask Trevor about that, or Micah. Like I genuinely, when we were in high school and I was going off to college, I was like, yep, like Dylan, like we were on almost the same level and you were 4 years younger than me. And I was like, man, like I knew that you were going to be able to do it. And so, I mean, honestly, like watching you go freelance was, to me, I was kind of like, okay, like Dylan didn't have to go the traditional path and he's figuring it out and he's doing it in his sort of way. Like he found his lane. I'm like, okay, so I just have to find like my lane and go in there and lean into it. And so, yeah, no, I mean, this is a cool milestone podcast to reflect back, hang out, talk cameras and stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's just every time I submit a pitch deck, it feels like all I have to do is get somebody to say yes enough to like get somewhere with the camera, hopefully with some other like cool people, maybe in a cool place. And like, we'll just run around and make something. And like, I just have to convince somebody to keep saying yes to being able to do that. And so that's, yeah, I have a couple of those emails that are sent out now for next year. We'll see what happens. We'll just keep going cool places, making cool stuff.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I just like to say, like, I know that, like I've looked up to you for like my entire career in terms of like, guidance and like inspiration and stuff like that. But like, I'm so proud of you and like what you've been doing the past, you've been freelancing for 4 years? Three. Yeah. Like I'm so happy for you and like what you've, been like building for yourself. And like, as like people are like hiring you as opposed to like, doing it, like working for a company. Like it's tough, like working for a company and having that be the vehicle in terms to opportunities, but having like people come directly to you because of like what you're offering and like hiring you for you and your work. And that's so difficult. And like, I'm so like proud of you for like going into that. And I'm like, whenever I see like, cause I feel like we've been on this journey like together, like it's been a long time. And just to see the evolution of like where we've both been going and like working on cool things. And like, it's so cool to see. So yeah, I just want to say that.
Well, I appreciate it. No, and thanks for making the time today. As much as I'm afraid of giving two white guys some more podcast microphones, I know. Hopefully somebody got something out of this. I don't know, speed up to 2x. Like that's what I always say. I say with my audio messages too. Every time I send you like a 4 to 10 minute audio message, I'm like, yep, just read the transcript. You'll probably get the point.
Yeah. Last thing, where can people find you if they want to view your work or hire you?
Yep. Best place is www.drewbdarby.com. You can find my contact info. Please reach out over email too. Stuff gets stuck in Instagram DM requests. You can also Drew B Darby on Instagram. Drew B Darby pretty much anywhere. Not Drew Darby. There is a B. Drew Darby is going to put you in a different place. I'm working on getting control of that domain name, but Drew B Darby pretty much everywhere.
Thanks, Drew. Really appreciate it.
Anytime.